Chapter 1-2 Tigers out of prison. As soon as his sentence expires tomorrow, he will be released from prison. Jairo lies in his cell, so excited that he can't sleep the whole night. 6 years, from the first day he came in, he was waiting for this moment. The same person who couldn't sleep with him was his brother, Dalong. Only Dalong was not because of excitement, but was harboring uneasiness. He didn't know if it was right or wrong for him to promise the leader that he would bring Jairo to live with him at home, and he wasn't even sure if his wife, Ruyu, would agree. Ruyu was lying on the bed after her bath, her beautiful body curves and snow-white skin glistening in the light. After Dalong walked into the bedroom, he couldn't help but dry swallow, but he couldn't help it. Every time before going to bed, Ruyu's kind of beautiful and sexy presentation was undoubtedly a wordless demonstration for Dalong. Every time, Dalong was like a child who had done something wrong, curled up in a corner of the comfortable and wide double bed, not daring to breathe a single breath, inferior to the extreme. Today was different. Because of Jairo's matter, the power of Dalong, in order to coax Ruyu to be happy, still with a smile on his face, climbed onto his wife's body. Don't mess around, reading a novel. Ruyu did not even raise her eyelids. Ruyu had experienced this situation too many times. Married for a year, even the wedding night, seemingly monkeyed Dalong, not yet how to lay down, and later entered a long treatment. Ruyu, Dalong said awkwardly, there is something I want to discuss with you. When Ruyu glanced at him, there is something to say, to climb on me for what? My brother got out of prison, I want to get him to live at home, you see? Labor reformer? Ruyu jumped to the edge of the bed and stood up at once, staring wide-eyed at Dalong, suddenly blinking her eyes and asked, where did you get your brother, aren't you an orphan? It was a long story. Dalong came from the remote Jejia village. When he was small, his parents were working as migrant laborers in Haichang when they picked up a child on the side of a garbage can. His name was Dalong. The parents named the boy Eru. Later, his parents died one after another. Dalong went to college, but Jairo went to prison. When Ruyu asked, why did he sit in jail? Chopping people, the people to cut the disability, was sentenced to 6 years. Murderer When Ruyu body hairs are standing up, and then measured Dalong, you honestly into this, your brother can still kill? He is not my brother So what? This cowardly character of yours is caused by the environment in which you grew up. Even if he was picked up by your parents and grew up in the same environment as you, how bad could his character be? Dalong shook his head with a bitter smile. He really has a completely different character from me, otherwise how could he kill someone? How old? 24 years old. When Ruyu's eyes stared like copper bells, after sitting in jail for 6 years, he came back and was only 24 years old, he killed someone at the age of 18? Dalong nodded awkwardly, but it was also forced. Knock, move times. Before Dalong could finish his words, deafening music suddenly came from upstairs, accompanied by a burst of foot stomping on the floor, making it feel like the floorboards were about to collapse. When Ruyu angrily got up and was about to pull open the window, Dalong hurriedly pulled her and said, forget it, she is a girl, cannot afford to mess with. What do you mean you can't afford it? Who can stand it if she makes so much noise every now and then? Look, there are so many people living in our neighborhood, who dares to control her? When Ruyu furiously walked to the living room sofa and sat down, Dalong hurriedly followed out. Looking at her timid husband, when Ruyu suddenly asked, when will your brother be released from prison? Ming, tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow I will go with you to pick up. Really? Dalong couldn't believe his ears. When Ruyu was pissed off by Chen Lingan who lived on the second floor. Aren't you a Tai Chi and a scum? Let Dalong's murderer brother come and treat you later, let's see if you're still arrogant. When Ruyu nodded and got up, ready to go back to the bedroom, Dalong was so happy that he immediately picked her up and walked into the bedroom, pouncing on the bed in one fell swoop, with a confident look. When Ruyu asked with suspicion, where did you get the confidence tonight? Dalong laughed awkwardly, recently, I have been conditioning, and I just drank medicinal wine, so I might be able to turn the tide against the wind. The result is still not enough power. Sleep, when Ruyu sighed, tomorrow you have to get up early to go to the provincial capital. Dalong laughed dryly twice, awkwardly got off of her, and wrapped his arms around her and slept. Early the next morning, they drove to the entrance of the provincial prison. Dalong just parked the car, when Ruyu pushed the door off the car and raised her eyes to see that a burly man was walking out of the prison's gate. Stepping out of the prison's gate, Jia Eru took a deep breath of fresh and free air, but unintentionally, he found a breathtakingly beautiful beauty that was coming down from a sedan. Body tall and straight, devil curves. Temperament dignified and elegant, sexy but slightly pure beauty. Without blowing or black, Jia Eru felt that the village flower Wu Jinhua, by this beautiful woman, at least thrown out dozens of streets. Only he never dreamed that this woman, who was beautiful to the extreme, was actually Jia Dalong's wife. Chapter 2, when Ruyu was shocked and confused. When Ruyu also saw Jia Eru's face clearly, and her heart flinched. Why is this person's gaze so sharp? One look could make the soles of one's feet shiver with cold air. When Ruyu hurriedly lowered her head to avoid Jia Eru's gaze. As a university lecturer, what she had to face every day was the various gazes of countless students, but this kind of gaze from Jia Eru she had never seen before. Just one glance was enough to make one's bones etched in one's mind. Jia Eru, who was lost in thought, was suddenly attracted by the car door on the driver's seat of the sedan, and accidentally found that the one who pushed the door out of the car was actually the son of his adoptive parents, that is, his estranged brother, Jia Dalong. Jia Eru frowned and quickly turned his head toward the other side. Eru? Jia Dalong, who pushed the door to get out of the car, glanced at Jia Eru, but was not quite sure. While Jia Eru had been in jail for 6 years, he hadn't seen Jia Eru for 8 years. When Jia Dalong left his hometown, Jia Eru was only 16 years old, and now he is 24 years old. In addition to ideological reform, prison was also a place that was very good at exercising the body, and the once clueless teenager had now turned into a strapping, strong man. When Ruyu sniffed and once again looked up at Jia Eru. Jia Eru stopped walking, turned around with mixed feelings, and asked a rhetorical question, "What is it?" "It's really you, Eru, I'm brother Jia Dalong walked over, tightly embraced Jia Eru, very excitedly said, "When you left home, you were still a child, and now you are already a man with a strong iron bone. It is not something to be proud of when such a change occurs in prison." Jia Eru's indifference and Jia Dalong's joy were in sharp contrast. When Ruyu's big, beautiful eyes stared unblinkingly at Jia Eru, thinking, "What a ruthless man, this trip wasn't in vain." "Ruyu, quickly come over, introduce yourself, this is my brother Eru." "Eru, this is your sister-in-law." When Ruyu smiled faintly and nodded towards Jia Eru. Swoon. Such a beautiful woman would actually marry Jia Dalong? Where is Wu Jinhua? Was she kicked by Jia Dalong? Jia Eru gave her an expressionless look and turned his gaze back to Jia Dalong. "What are you doing here?" "To take you home." "Which home?" "Of course it's Haichang, the home of your sister-in-law and I." "Now it's also your home, our home. When will Jia Dalong remember that he has the same home as himself?" "Sorry, my home is in Jia village." After saying that, Jia Eru directly turned around and left. "I'll go." Sure enough, he's a murderer, no love at all? Although it is not a brother, but after all, the brother to pick up, not a kind word, you are? Originally also expect him to deal with the upstairs two sister, now it seems, half a catty, not a good thing. Don't reject the tiger at the front door, and enter the wolf at the back door. When Ruyu gloomy face, ready to pull open the door and directly get on the car. Eru. Jia Dalong was about to catch up, when Ruyu was a little angry, loudly scolded, "What to call? You kindly ran more than 100 kilometers, people do not take care of you, but also deadbeat what? Not. What's not? It's just a prisoner of labor, what's the point of dragging your feet? Let's go home." When Ruyu usually speak, never so mean, today I do not know what happened. Once the words fell, Jia Dalong face changed, desperately toward when Ruyu eyes, he was afraid to make Jia Eru angry. When Ruyu thought, afraid of what to be afraid of, how to say you are his brother, I am his sister-in-law, is he still will eat me not? When Ruyu subconsciously glanced at Jia Eru and found that Jia Eru slowly turned around and looked at herself coldly. Heavens! That was definitely not a gaze that a human should have. If gazes could kill, one would have already died 100 times. When Ruyu wanted to act like she didn't care, but she couldn't help but wince. Jia Dalong hurriedly walked over towards Jia Eru and said with a smile on his face, "Eru, your sister-in-law doesn't understand the situation, in fact, she is quite nice. I heard that you were going to be released from prison, without saying a word, and I came over to pick you up." Did not wait for Jia Dalong to finish, Jia Eru cold snorted, turned around and left. Eru. Jia Dalong called out while chasing after him. Back to God when Ruyu, see Jia Dalong that look, once again chided, Jia Dalong, you a goon, there is a man like? In the unit by the leadership of colleagues angry, in the neighborhood by the female hooligans bullied, now well, run here, but also by the younger brother's anger. Men do you this, better to die. When Ruyu's words just fell, Jia Ero suddenly turned around and walked towards her without saying a word. When Ruyu was startled and shivered in fear. At this moment, she couldn't wait to turn around and run, but she found that her legs wouldn't listen to her. She regretted promising Jia Dalong that she would receive Jia Ero to live at home and followed Jia Dalong to the provincial prison. Jia Dalong, also scared confused, hurriedly chased over to embrace Jia Ero from behind. Jia Ero shook it off vigorously, and Jia Dalong staggered a few steps and almost fell down. When Jia Ero walked over to when Ruyu felt like she couldn't hold her pee. But soon she calmed down. Jia Ero's body emanated a strong smell of male hormones that hit her and revitalized her. When Ruyu couldn't help but breathe into her lungs, feeling a strong excitement. Man, this is what a man should smell like. Chapter 3: Love and Hate. Jia Ero, who had a bear's waist and tiger's back, an inverted triangle on his upper body, with his obliques and deltoids protruding high, had his hands in tightly clenched fists, and the joints of each finger were clicking. When Ruyu understood that if that fist of his were to really come face to face, it could definitely turn her colorful features into a pizza in an instant. It was just that she actually wasn't scared at all. After living with the too unmanly Jia Dalong for a year, she was eager to see what the too manly Jia Ero could actually do to herself. The expressionless Jia Ero similarly smelled the Yuan Jiha emanating from Wen Ruyu's body. Especially her snow-white neck and forehead made Jia Ero a little dizzy. Jia Ero desperately trying to control his emotions, originally ready to get on the hand as a slap, but in the face of such a special thing on earth, really cannot get off the hand. He said in a cold voice, wanting to be widowed is your business, why curse Jia Dalong? When Ruyu was stunned, is he defending Jia Dalong? If so, why treat Jia Dalong that way? Jia Dalong rushed over and blocked in front of Wen Ruyu, saying, your sister-in-law, she is a widow. Without waiting for Jia Dalong to finish, Jia Ero turned around and unexpectedly pulled open the rear door directly and sat in without saying a word. It really smells good. The moment he sat in the sedan, Jia Ero couldn't help but take a deep breath. The car was dense with the breath of Wen Ruyu's body. Jia Dalong and Wen Ruyu looked at each other, a few meanings, how to suddenly get on the car. Jia Dalong made a wink towards Wen Ruyu, hurry to get on the car. Che, he wants to go, just go, want to get on the car, just get on the car off. Wen Ruyu was upset and hesitated. After Jia Dalong gave her a wink again, Wen Ruyu deflated her mouth and pulled open the passenger door to sit in. Through the inside view mirror, Wen Ruyu quietly glanced at Jia Ero and realized that he was leaning on the back with his eyes closed, looking like no one else was there. In fact, he was breathing in the scent of Wen Ruyu's body. This scent was a little sweet in its aroma for him. It was the first time he had smelled this kind of scent that was enough to, in an instant, cause a strong change in his body. Right, Ero, Jia Dalong suddenly remembered something and turned around to ask, where is your luggage? No. Jia Ero's voice was colder than ice. Jia Dalong was embarrassed. Jia Ero's mother had already died when he was 18 years old in prison, and his father even died a few years before his mother died. Jia Dalong has never visited the prison Jia Ero wore the luggage? Especially when he was growing up, it was good to have proper clothes on him to wear. What he was wearing now was still a gift from his cellmates' families. In fact, Jia Dalong never thought of coming to recognize this half-brother, and just released from prison. Just for the sake of his own future, he had to listen to the arrangements of the leadership. Jia village's current mayor, Jia Yong, found the town's leadership and found the county. The leaders of the county found the province through the city, and finally found Jia Dalong, who teaches at Haicheng University. They all knew Jia Ero's temperament and were worried that he would make a big fuss when he returned to the village, so they asked Jia Dalong to step in and do some work. It would be best if Jia Ero stayed in Haicheng for a period of time after his sentence was completed, so that he could adapt to the current society before returning to the village. The current village chief, Jia Yong, is the son of the previous village chief, Jia Shuisheng, whom Jia Ero hacked 6 years ago, and Jia Yong was also hacked by Jia Ero 8 years ago. In other words, Jia Ero was only 16 years old when he first hacked someone, and Jia Dalong didn't dare tell Wen Ruyu. If Jia Ero returns to the village as soon as he is released from prison, God knows what will happen. Jia Dalong is about to evaluate the title of associate professor, but also want to enjoy the benefits of the school, ready to buy a townhouse on campus. The school leadership used this as a condition. Jia Dalong had to agree. First Jia Era pick up home to live. After a while, Jia Dalong, and no words to say, a few years ago I went back to my hometown, the father and mother's grave to get a little bit, and now repaired into the village's ancestral graves on the highest mountain, the most luxurious. Jia Era colder than ice, harder than iron voice again, do not talk, drive your car well. In his opinion, parents alive when not filial piety, now do these to whom to see. I go, this tone is also no one. When Ruyu raised her eyes again and looked at Jia Era in the inside view mirror, realizing that the features hidden by his dark and indifferent appearance were actually very handsome. No wonder Jia Dalong said that this bloodless brother was different, and that he really couldn't see a bit of mountain man in him. The kind of timidity on Jia Dalong, in his body, is even more unable to find a trace. Just this clothes on his body. When Ruyu, who originally had a few moments of anger and a few moments of fear in her heart, was somehow poked at the softest part of her heart by Jia Eru. She sighed, took out her cell phone and typed a line on the screen, when you go back, first go to Walking Street and buy him a few sets of clothes. Then handed the cell phone to Jia Dalong. Jia Dalong took the phone and nodded towards Wen Ruyu. After the car drove into Haicheng, Jia Dalong stopped the car in front of Pedestrian Street. What for? Jia Eru asked coldly. Oh, I will buy a few sets of clothes for you with your sister-in-law. No need, said Jia Eru, drive to your school. What for? Jia Dalong asked. Jia Eru said word for word, I want to see which son of a bitch bullied you. Oh. When Ruyu then reacted, the reason why Jia Eru got into the car was that he had come to avenge his brother's death. She couldn't help but look back at Jia Eru, thinking, so he is a sentimental person, it's okay for him to be indifferent to his brother, but it's not okay for others to bully him. When Ruyu liked Jia Eru's character of love and hate. Chapter 4, When Ruyu Arching Fire. Jia Dalong smiled awkwardly, actually, what your sister-in-law said about bullying is not what you think it is. Everyone teaches at the university, they are all educated, not the kind that moves their hands. Jia Eru said in a cold voice, either kind won't do. I know where your school is, if you don't drive again, I will go myself. This person is not stupid, ah? Go by yourself, who are you looking for? When Ruyu could not help but sneer. Jia Eru asked one word at a time, what are you laughing at? I go, why is this sound so creepy? When Ruyu said stiffly, the school is so big, so many people, who are you going to find yourself? Jia Eru stared at the side of her face and said, from the security guards at the entrance to the principal, see one and ask one, who bullied Jia Dalong, Jia Eru, ruined him on the spot. Cut. Cut what? Who bullied your brother, they will still admit it. Don't I know how to look? Jia Eru said, whoever shows disdain at the mention of Jia Dalong's name, I'll make him look for his teeth on the ground. Mad sweat. Are you really that mean, or are you just trying to raise a stink? When Ruyu was angered by him, his temper came up, suddenly turned around and disliked, if you have the ability to go here horizontal what? Jia Dalong panicked. Ruyu. He hurriedly drank one Ruyu, don't talk nonsense, this brother of mine is different from others, what he can't do, he doesn't say. What is said, will definitely be done. Jia Eru was obviously not willing to talk nonsense with them and reached out to pull the car door. Jia Dalong immediately released the brakes and said, fine, let's go. When Ruyu hadn't returned to her senses, she secretly raised her eyes and glanced at Jia Eru in the inside view mirror, thinking, no way? If it is really so horizontal, we will be able to raise our eyebrows. Jia Dalong did not go to school, but drove the car to the district, parked in the parking lot outside the district. Jia Eru got out of the car and immediately grimaced. Eru, Jia Dalong hurriedly explained, it's noon, don't we need to eat too? When Ruyu ventured out a sentence, if you really want to take the heat for your brother, there are plenty of places, we live upstairs with a little Taiyu, every day riding on our head to shit and pee. Ruyu. Jia Dalong hurriedly stopped her. When Ruyu, however, said, originally. Without saying a word, Jia Eru walked directly towards the neighborhood. Jia Dalong made to complain about Wen Ruyu with his eyes, she glared at Jia Dalong defiantly, Jia Dalong wanted to die. Seeing Jia Eru walking away dozens of meters towards the front, Jia Dalong only cried and laughed and whispered, "My aunt, you really don't know how ruthless this younger brother of mine is. As long as he makes a move, the other party is either dead or disabled. If he really kills or cripples that girl upstairs, you will regret it then." Ruyu snorted coldly, completely disbelieving. Jia Dalong's family lived on the first floor, and Chen Lingan, the young lady Ruyu was talking about, lived on the second floor. Coincidentally, when the three of them were about to walk to the entrance of the building, there was a sudden snap, and a red plastic bag flew out of the window on the second floor. It was supposed to be thrown into the trash can, but it ended up on the road. Ruyu looked up and saw that it was Chen Lingan who threw the trash. Looking down again, the trash bag was actually filled with Auntie's napkins. "Hey, can you be civilized?" Chen Lingan just disappeared from the window. Ruyu angrily scolded, "Do you still want to be shameless? This kind of thing is also littered. Do not know that the following is my home window?" Chen Lingan's pretty face suddenly returned to the window and laughed disdainfully. "You are a university teacher, you are civilized, you want a face, please help me throw it into the garbage can." Jia Dalong made a strong wink towards Chen Lingan. Chen Lingan didn't understand what he meant and didn't bother, turned around and disappeared from the window. Again. Ruyu still wanted to say a few words, but she saw Jia Ero walk into the building with his head down without saying a word. Jia Dalong at this time dragged Ruyu, let her go home. Ruyu was on fire. "Hey, didn't you say that your brother is very arrogant? What do you say as long as?" Jia Dalong's face swished white, dazed, to be out of life. After saying that, he dashed towards the building as if flying. Ruyu was stunned. Although she didn't believe that someone would really die, the knocking sound coming from the second floor really made her heart panic. Chen Lingan was 24 years old and had a slim figure to the extreme. Her eyebrows were clear, her skin was snow white, not to mention, especially those chopstick legs and slender arms. When she walked, it felt like the whole person was floating in the clouds. Although her hips were small, her breasts were especially sexy. Definitely the kind of place that shouldn't grow meat, without a hint of fatigue. Where meat should grow, there is never any ambiguity. The sound of Jia Ero's hammer-like fist, smashing on the security door, made her heart jump. "Who is it? Is this a fucking earthquake?" Chapter 5, Grumpy Little Beauty. Chen Lingan, wearing a halter dress, slippers, a face of anger, rushed to the door to open the door, not yet see the face of Jia Ero, but felt Jia Ero's hand, like a black umbrella to the face. Chen Lingan usually keep a ponytail, looks very youthful and beautiful. Because she had just gotten up, she was wearing a head of hair at this time. Holy shit! She never dreamed that Jia Ero would grab her hair and directly carry her out like a chicken. Crap! Chen Lingan screamed, and as her entire body scurried forward, her hands lifted up and clutched onto Jia Ero's hands in order to alleviate the pain of her hair tearing. The slippers had also fallen off, and after scurrying out barefoot, she still didn't know what had happened. Without saying a word, Jia Ero yanked her hair downward. But the scent of perfume emanating from Chen Lingan's body made Jia Ero instantly excited. Ruyu's body scent was softer. The perfume Chen Lingan sprayed was strong enough. "Hey, who the hell are you?" Chen Lingan lowered his head, could not see Jia Ero's face, just to see the clothes he was wearing. Do not to earth ah. Simply like migrant workers, pants legs are still hanging, obviously smaller than one. Jia Dalong has rushed to the corner of the first 2 floors, hurriedly said, "To Tiger, hurry to loosen, all our neighbors, all are." Chen Lingan only then reacted. Just saw downstairs, in addition to Jia Dalong couple, in front of a big black man, began to think it was the property, or their family invited workers. Only after hearing this tone of voice from Jia Dalong did she realize that she should be Jia Dalong's younger brother. A big dragon and a second tiger, what is not a brother? Jia Dalong's honesty and cowardice was well known throughout the neighborhood. How good could his brother be? Although his hair was being dragged, Chen Lingan suddenly flew up his chopstick leg and kicked towards Jia Ero's vitals, and cursed, "Damn it, what's wrong with you?" Jia Dalong's face was white with fear, and he blurted out, "Don't scold my mother." Jia mother is Jia Dalong and Jia Ero brother's heart forever pain. Especially Jia Ero can't tolerate anyone scolding his mother. Even if people just verbalize. Even if Jia mother is actually just his adoptive mother. And his birth mother. Before Jia Dalong's words fell, he only heard a few crisp slaps as Jia Ero slapped left and right, directly slapping Chen Lingan dumbfounded. She felt like the world was full of stars. Then, her face was on fire, as if someone was using a knife, cutting the skin of her face layer by layer. That kind of pain was absolutely inexpressible and unspeakable. Dalong just wanted to go over and pull away, but he didn't realize that Era was carrying Chen Lingan, and with a shoulder head, he directly bumped into him and staggered 2 steps. If he hadn't reached out to hold the handle, he would have almost rolled down the stairs. When Ruyu, standing outside, saw half a day no one out, was about to enter the building, but saw Era hand carrying something out. Fixed eyes to see, days, actually is a person? Era completely ignored the surprised when Ruyu directly mentioned Chen Lingan to the plastic bag in front of her to swallow the auntie's napkin. Chen Lingan then back to God, immediately cursed, "Grass mud horse, you find death." She was also considered a ruthless character. The pain in her face hadn't disappeared yet, and Era had just let go of her hand when she flew up and kicked towards Era's face. Her bones are really made of water. That chopstick leg kick is more than 10 centimeters higher than her head. Such a special creature on Earth, no one would be able to lay their hands on her. Unfortunately, it was Era who met her today. Moreover, Era intended to make an example of Ruyu, wanting to let her know that if she got mad, her old man was just as heavy-handed. Chen Lingan's leg kicked over, Era dodged, directly close to her side, reached out and grabbed her neck and pressed down. With a snap, Chen Lingan's leg was directly pressed out of the air onto the concrete floor, splitting into a beautiful zigzag. But the pain made her grimace. Era grabbed her hair with one hand and slapped her left and right with the other, slapping her 2 more times, even when Ruyu, who was standing at the side, felt her pretty face twitch. Wow! The notoriously spirited and brash Chen Lingan, at this time suddenly cried out, "What the hell kind of man are you, a woman you also hit?" "Woo!" Era said in a cold voice, "Slap you because you scolded my mother. Let you swallow what you threw, is to teach you to be a man." After saying that, Era pressed her head towards the plastic bag. "Damn it, can this be swallowed?" Chen Lingan struggled desperately, chopstick legs and slender arms, ground on the ground and dirty and scratched out blood marks, but her mouth kept cursing. Era was no one else. He pressed Chen Lingan cursed a sentence, he slapped a slap. Chen Lingan's melon-like face, which was loved by everyone, was slapped by Era to the point of turning into a purple eggplant, and when Ruyu's heart ached as she watched. She tugged on Dalong and said, "Quickly, quickly." Dalong deadlocked one of his brother's hands, "I beg you, forget it, forget it." The cloaked Chen Lingan looked up and saw that Dalong had grabbed Era's hand, but Era's gaze could still kill. Chen Lingan winced and cried, "Oh, I can't swallow it." Woo! Chapter 6, Really Get Down to It. Era asked, "Still cursing?" Woo, do not curse. Chen Lingan hard but spit, "Mom, by then, this goods is from the stone popped out? Don't know how to be kind and compassionate. Still throwing things around?" Era asked. Woo, no more throwing. Pick up what you threw and throw it in the trash. Woo, I'll pick it up, I'll pick it up. When she got up and picked up the plastic bag and threw it in the trash can, when she turned around, Era was nowhere to be seen. Dalong hurriedly made a wink towards Ruyu. It turns out that Era saw Chen Lingan pick up the garbage, turned around and walked towards the building. Dalong was asking Ruyu to go and open the door for him. After seeing Ruyu leave with a bemused look on her face, Dalong whispered, I'm sorry, this younger brother of mine doesn't know any better, I'll take responsibility for today." Chen Lingan didn't even look at him and walked towards the building with her head down. Dalong followed by his side and said, "I'll pay for it, how much do you say?" Chen Lingan still didn't pay any attention to him. When Ruyu walked into the building and saw Era facing the security door without saying a word, that side was as angular as a statue, simply too handsome. To put it bluntly, she was shocked by Era's ruthlessness just now. If Era was as wimpy as Dalong, Ruyu definitely wouldn't be able to see anything handsome about him. When Ruyu deliberately cleared her throat to get Era's attention, but Era turned a deaf ear and remained motionless as she gazed at the door of the room. In fact, when he heard Ruyu's footsteps, Era's heart had already kept running out of white rabbits. Especially when the person is not even close, a fragrant wind comes, Era feels that his body's goosebumps are rising out of his body. After Ruyu opened the door to her room, she habitually went to get her slippers and was ready to hand them to Era, but Era took it in stride and sat his butt down on the sofa. It wasn't that he didn't love hygiene, he had learned to discipline himself in prison. It's just that he was wearing a pair of sneakers, sweaty feet, and extra stinky. He was afraid of fainting when Ruyu Jia Dalong followed Chen Lingan in, saw that the door to the house was open, and didn't dare to say anything. When Chen Lingan went upstairs, he followed. When Chen Lingan walked into the house, Jia Dalong followed him in, closed the door with his backhand, and plopped down on the ground. "Miss Chen, I kowed out to you, just tell me how much money you want." Chen Lingan looked back at Jia Dalong and said in a cold voice, "This is not a question of money, and it has nothing to do with you, you go." Ms. Chen. Did not hear what I said? Miss Chen. Roll. Jia Dalong had no choice but to get up, just walked to the door, and then turned back and said, "Miss Chen, why don't you call the police?" Chen Lingan sneered twice. "Really?" Jia Dalong then said, "You must not call those friends in society, or there will be a big problem." Chen Lingan again laughed coldly, thought, finished, early what to do, now afraid? "I did not expect," Jia Dalong said again, "this brother of mine is a madman. 6 years ago, the village head of our hometown cut, the result was sentenced to 6 years, this morning I just picked him up from the provincial prison. I go, just out of the number of labor prisoners Thinking of Jia Era's eyes just now, Chen Lingan couldn't help but shiver, goosebumps all over her body. But she still sneered twice. Jia Dalong sighed and said, "Miss Chen," I said, "I'm willing to pay for the money. If you want to take out your anger, I can kneel for you again, even if you call the police, but never, 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 never. Otherwise, you and I will regret it for the rest of our lives." Chen Lingan realized that Jia Dalong meant that his brother was a master who was not afraid of death, and that if he called someone, he might get killed. But this mouthful of bad anger just couldn't be swallowed. She tilted her face to the side. Jia Dalong sighed and left with a shake of his head. Chen Lingan immediately got up and walked into the bedroom, picking up the cell phone that was placed on the edge of her pillow and hesitated for a moment. She wasn't hesitating whether to make this call or not, but she was hesitating whether to call her boyfriend Ding Gang to come over, or to call Iron Pink Warped Mouth to come over. Chen Lingan's boyfriend Ding Gang, rich second generation, his father is Ding Xiaotian, chairman of the Ding Group, and he is also a lord who calls the shots in society. Sister Ding Min is also a Haichang women's SWAT team of police flowers. The problem is that Ding Gang was originally a playboy, all over the womanizing. 2 days ago in the discotheque, a lady with his arms around dry, but also by Chen Lingan bumped into. These days the two did not meet. Because of this, Chen Lingan every day to the Warped Mouth called, and some of his friends in society, in the home to eat, drink, and dance, make a mess. Now he was just released from prison. Jia Era beat up, called Ding Gang, he will come? Even if he came, knowing that he brought people to go crazy at home every day, what would he think? Chen Lingan finally dialed Warped Mouth's cell phone number. Chapter 7. Hurry up and get out of here. Jia Dalong returned home to see, when Ruyu was cooking in the kitchen, Jia Era like a wooden statue sitting on the sofa. Second tiger, Jia Dalong did not even close the door to the room, walked to the front of Jia Era and said, "You hurry to go, I send you back to the village." When Ruyu, who was washing vegetables, immediately stopped the work in her hands and listened with her ears open. Jia Era said expressionlessly, "Originally I went back, it is you who took me over, things are not finished, I am not going anywhere. I do not have the things you want to do here, the upstairs that two girl has been subdued by you, do not dare to mess with us in the future, you quickly go." Jia Dalong, Jia Era said in a cold voice, "Since she was subdued by me, why are you urging me to leave? If I'm not mistaken, just like when you went to the village chief's house, you kneel down to others, right?" Jia Dalong's face was white for a while, green for a while, momentarily speechless. When Ruyu in the kitchen frowned, thinking, there is still this? Could it be that Jia Dalong, this no-good guy, really knelt to that dead girl? Jia Era then asked, "Although you kneeled down, but people still did not promise to let me go, so you are in a hurry with the grave like urging me to go, right?" I said, "Jia Dalong, it's okay that you were a child, but now that you're an adult, you're still a wimp. You were bullied in the village, but now you're a teacher at the university, when are you going to get over it?" When Ruyu listened to a cavity of anger surging upward. One is that Jia Dalong is indeed a loser. Secondly, Jia Era is a Jia Dalong, even brother will not call? Just in the car, when Ruyu held back, but now at home, she could not hold back. She took off her apron and grabbed it in her hand, directly rushed out of the kitchen, pointing at Jia Era and cursing, "You little rascal, labor prisoner, what the hell are you?" Jia Era slowly turned his head and looked at Wen Ruyu without saying a word. Jia Dalong was startled, hurriedly turned around and pushed Wen Ruyu toward the kitchen. "Forget it, Ruyu, this is our brother and sister, you When Ruyu fought to push, Dalong was not paying attention, tripped over the sofa behind him, and fell on his butt on the sofa. When Ruyu pointed at Ero and said, "Not bad, your brother is a wimp, but even if he is a wimp, he is still your brother, right? Although you are not blood brothers, but his parents raised you, you call him a brother. What happened? Dalong is also what you call Ruyu?" Dalong stood up from the sofa and was about to walk towards when Ruyu pointed her finger at him, "You stand here. I will go." Married for almost a year, when Ruyu, although the heart a little despise him, but this is still the first time to charge him angry, Dalong a moment confused. Standing there, really do not dare to move. When Ruyu turned and pointed at Ero and said, "I know your brother is a wimp, but I don't know what he can be a wimp. Since you know that he knelt to that little goblin, you want to gain face for him, now go upstairs and beat up the little goblin. What are you doing at home? Besides, he's kneeling down for someone else, isn't he doing it for you? He's afraid that someone will call the police or some thugs will come to take revenge on you. I don't think there's a single good thing in the Jia family. One's soft, one's a wimp, and one's got no respect for his own family. You're not leaving? If you have the ability to kill the upstairs goblin first, and then kill our entire school teachers and colleagues, because the entire school colleagues and teachers have bullied your brother." When Dalong heard that, he cried bitterly on the spot, Ruyu, I am killed by you, he will really go to kill someone. Wu dash. When Ruyu was stunned. Dalong was even weaker, but he had never really cried. When Ruyu had some regrets. Just now, she was harboring a fire in her chest, and she couldn't control herself when her emotions flared up. Seeing Dalong scared like this, she estimated that Ero was afraid that he would really go and kill someone. If he kills someone, then he himself can. When Ruyu didn't dare to think further. She was even puzzled by her own anger at this outburst. Ero's ruthlessness she has seen with her own eyes. To Chen Lingan, like the girl are merciless, they are beginning to be a little afraid of him. How can this actually not afraid, but also launched a rage? When Ruyu somewhat at a loss for words, looking at Ero, wondering what is wrong with her today? Chapter 8, Your time is running out. And when Ruyu also feels strange, and Ero. When he was young in the village, because of his adoptive father and mother's honesty, and the fact that he was an adopted son, he was called a wild seed or a bastard, and was often bullied. Some kids older than him and a little younger than Dalong often bullied him. Every time he went home and told Dalong, hoping that his brother would stand up for him, Dalong was too scared to say anything. Because other people also have older brothers. In Ero's memory, among all the older brothers of the children in the village, Dalong was the most cowardly one. Since then, Ero knew that he could only rely on himself. Especially when he was 16 years old, he took a slice and chased after Yang to cut. Yang was in his 20s at the time, his father was the village chief, not to mention that he was also the village bully. All the people in the village went around when they saw him. Because of Wu Jinhua, Yang and Dalong were jealous of each other and fought against Dalong. As a result, Ero chased him from the village to the back of the mountain, and then on a hillside, from top to bottom with a slice, directly at him. Yang used his hand to grab the katana, resulting in a long cut on his tiger's mouth. The problem was that the knife was still being drawn out by Ero, and then cut towards Yang's chest. Coincidentally, it was a rainy day and the dirt road on the hillside was slippery. When Yang turned back to escape, his feet slipped and he rolled more than 20 meters down the hill. Ero didn't stop and chased him down the hill again, but he was finally stopped by the head of the security department with his men. Since then, no one in the village dared to mess with him. If anyone dared to bully Dalong and his adoptive mother, Ero just pointed to the other side's nose and said, "Sleep at night and tie the door well." He was so scared that he didn't dare to sleep for a few days and had to come to his foster mother's door to beg for mercy. In Ero's memory, since then no one dared to scold him. Including later in prison, not to mention scolding him, look at him, he will let the other side to grow a lifetime of memory. According to this one Ruyu, this meal fury down, Ero absolutely will immediately turn over his face. But to Dalong's surprise, Ero actually didn't get angry today. He did not move to when Ruyu said, "I do not go, is waiting. If the police did not come, she will definitely call the community to come. You've grown up and have never seen a murderer with your own eyes, right? Let you have a good look later. Sweat." Listen to his tone, killing people is like killing chickens, but also to kill me to see? When Ruyu's surface does not move, but the back of the spine is a burst of cold. At this time, there was a burst of footsteps outside, led by the mouth of the warped. Lingan, warped mouth, stood outside the window and shouted at the second floor, "Where is the person? Hurry down." When Ruyu and Dalong probed to see, the 2 4 legs are soft, warped mouth at least 7 or 8 punks to bring. Those punks have dyed hair and tattoos on their arms. Warped mouth could walk properly, but he liked to sweep his legs from side to side. He could also hold his head high like a dog, but he used to tilt his head and stand there shaking his body unceasingly and unimaginably. Arrow, you quickly go out through the back door. Dalong stumbled and ran to Arrow's face, stuttering. When Ruyu stood there shivering. She also wanted to tell Arrow to run, but her consciousness didn't seem to be online, and she had absolutely no idea what to say or do. Arrow turned a deaf ear and sat on the sofa in a daze. Chen Lingan suddenly and silently appeared at the door. It was the same as when she had just gone upstairs, cloaked in hair, covered in dirt and scratches, and barefoot. She coldly looked at Arrow and appeared calm as she said, "Kneel down in front of me, then pick up what I threw into the trash and swallow it." Arrow did not move, as if what Chen Lingan said had nothing to do with him. In his heart, however, he was thinking, do all pretty women not carry brains? When Ruyu is like this, and so is this little goblin. But Arrow liked this kind of woman, hot enough. "Chen, Miss Chen." Dalong had just opened his mouth to pray, when Chen Lingan stared at him without moving, scaring him so much that he didn't dare to say anything. When Ruyu also wanted to pray to Chen Lingan at this time, but her mouth and tongue didn't listen to her. Lingan, the shouts of the warped mouth came from outside the window again. Chen Lingan stared at Arrow, "There is not much time left for you." "Damn it, you. Think I'm the men's soccer team?" Arrow still looked at Chen Lingan expressionlessly. Chen Lingan realized that giving him time was also redundant. Xiaozui was clearly outside the window, but she picked up the cell phone in her hand and said to Xiaozui, "Come in, this one on the right on the first floor." Xiaozui rushed in with the people. Chen Lingan took 2 steps toward the house, then turned back and gave a look to Xiaozui, saying gently, "That's him." After saying that, she turned around and faced out the window, as if what was about to happen had nothing to do with her, just sit back and wait for Arrow to find his teeth. Chapter 9 completely collapsed. Crossing her lips, Arrow looked okay, but her skin was a bit dark. Although the body is stout, but the appearance is really too earthy. A ground goods, looks either in the countryside burning brick kiln, or construction site lifting rebar. The most annoying thing is that, seeing himself walking horizontally, but also brought so many brothers, his dam still sitting there. Even if it is retarded, it is clearly bubbling with stupidity. Do not put the old man in the eyes off. Country bumpkin, warped mouth asked, "Know where this is?" Arrow did not say anything. "Do you know who I am?" The mouth asked again. Arrow still did not say anything. Chen Lingan head did not return, a low voice scolded, "Where's so much nonsense?" Arrow thought, okay, this beauty like me, can do it, never quarrel. The warped mouth, no longer nonsense, waved his fist toward Arrow, pounced. Behind him, the brothers see the situation, one by one to scramble, swarmed up. When Ruyu came back to her senses at this time and screamed loudly, "Big dragon, call the police!" Pa 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 pa. Almost at the same time as when Ruyu's screams rang out, the sounds of people falling to the ground, as well as joints breaking, rang out in quick succession. Dalong and when Ruyu were completely stunned. Chen Lingan, who was facing the window, had a post-revenge smile on the corner of her mouth. She thought to herself, "I'm afraid that the bones in Arrow's body had already cracked into pieces." This wasn't enough to relieve the hatred. Just now, when I was dragged downstairs from upstairs by him, I kicked him in the vitals and he acted as if nothing happened. Next, if I don't kick you to the point of breaking, sis won't be Chen Lingan. Chen Lingan slowly turned around, her cold and contemptuous smile instantly frozen. Lying on the ground, with broken joints in their hands and feet, even rolling around in pain, with their mouths wide open but not yet having the time to scream out, were actually warped mouth and the 7 or 8 brothers he had brought with him. One of Arrow's feet was stepping on Kaiazui's face, and the other foot was stepping on the chest of one of his brothers. Warped mouth, who had regained his strength, let out a pig-like howl at that moment. The others followed suit, letting out whimpers of pain. "Any idea where this is?" Arrow asked. Warped mouth let out a slurred sound. "Know who I am?" "Who-woo?" Standing on the side of the Chen Lingan, hands and feet cold, handsome face white as paper. Jia Era said in a cold voice, "Look at you, a bunch of goons. I would have liked to let you go, except that some people have never seen a murder, so." When Ruyu was scared out of her wits when she heard it. "Don't!" When Ruyu shouted, two tigers, I just said the words of anger, "You must not." Saying this, she reached out and tugged on Jia Dalong. Jia Dalong also stood there with his jaw dropped, half a day without coming back to his senses. He knew that Jia Era was ruthless, but he didn't expect him to be so capable of fighting, and in the blink of an eye, a room full of people were put down by him. Arrow, Jia Dalong stammered. "Count, forget it, as long as they don't mess with us again, let's count, forget it?" Seeing Wen Ruyu's blossoming face, Jia Era felt an indescribable sense of accomplishment in his heart. However, he did not show his complacency and removed his foot from Warped Beak's face, suddenly stepping on it with all his might. With a click, the Warped Mouth's shoulder blade was stepped on and dislocated. "Ah, that's a pain." Hearing the dislocation of the bone and the screams of the Warped Mouth, Wen Ruyu couldn't help but shiver as she tugged on Jia Dalong's arm and said incoherently, "Dalong, Yarrow, Tian, it's going to take a life." Jia Dalong is also shivering. How to sit in jail for 6 years, more ruthless than in the past? Arrow, count, forget it. Chen Lingan, who witnessed all this, had a feeling that she wanted to urinate, and she subconsciously contracted her body. Jia Era said to Warped Mouth, "I'll spare you today. I'll give you another chance to call someone, but cherish it, and it's best to call everyone you can, all at once, because you'll never get another one. Understand?" Warped Mouth grimaced in pain, unable to speak at all, and could only nod miserably. "Roll." Jia Era lifted his foot up and shone it at Warped Mouth's arm, directly sending him skidding across the floor to the door. The pain that tore through his body caused Warped Mouth to struggle to get up from the floor and stagger towards the door, unable to even care about his brothers or Chen Lingan. His brothers, who looked at Jia Era as if he were a plague, shivered straight through their bodies after meeting his sharp gaze, and ran out with their feet. When Jia Era's gaze turned to Chen Lingan could not cry and completely collapsed. Chapter 10. You'd better go back to the village. Seeing this, Wen Ruyu was stunned in her heart. Although Chen Lingan's desperate look made even Wen Ruyu feel a little heartbroken, she detected that there was something indescribable in Jia Era's eyes as he looked at Chen Lingan. It was a feeling. It was just like the gaze that many love-struck teenagers had when they gazed at Wen Ruyu during her classes. Jia Era was ruthless, and he was really ruthless to Warped Beak and the others. But what about Chen Lingan? Before seeing Jia Era slapping Chen Lingan's face, Wen Ruyu felt that he really did not leave any room for maneuver. But when she saw how steady and accurate he was when he put down Xiao Zui, Wen Ruyu realized that Jia Era who was actually being merciful to Chen Lingan. With the ruthlessness he had shown to Warped Mouth, I'm afraid that he would have had to break a few of Chen Lingan's ribs. While Jia Era looked at Chen Lingan without moving, causing Chen Lingan and Jia Dalong to shudder, Wen Ruyu saw something that no one else could see. She immediately walked over to Chen Lingan and went to her, saying, "You hurry up and leave." Chen Lingan almost burst into tears. Thinking to herself, "Do you think I don't want to go? The problem is that asshole can let me go?" Jia Dalong also walked over at this time, waving his hand desperately, "Go, quickly go." Chen Lingan was about to leave when Jia Era cleared his throat, scaring Chen Lingan so much that she shivered and didn't dare to take a step. When Ruyu looked back at Jia Era, seemed to have no fear just now, not even begging, just a calm tone to Jia Era, "Era, let her go?" Because she understood that Jia Era wouldn't really do anything to Chen Lingan, and that she needed a step now. She then gave Jia Era a step. Jia Era did not move and asked, "Just let her go, turn around and she will call someone again?" "No," said Jia Dalong, "she won tea, Miss Chen, don't you think so?" Chen Lingan hurriedly nodded her head. Jia Era got up and walked over to Chen Lingan, and when Ruyu turned over to look at Jia Era, Jia Dalong was worried about his brother striking again, and with a crying face pleaded, "Era, really, really don't strike again." Jia Era, however, did not move and said to Chen Lingan, "Call the police." Chen Lingan subconsciously pinched the cell phone in her hand, and her head shook like a rattle. "Why don't you call the police?" Jia Era asked. "Are you still counting on your friends to bring someone else?" "No. No," Chen Lingan explained. Today is my fault, is that I first littered the garbage to cause conflict, and later found people rushed to your brother's home. Even if you call the 110, the police cannot put you how." Jia Era coldly said, This is not very understanding of reason? Why were you unreasonable before? Because you have been in society for a few years, so you don't put others in your eyes." I didn't mix, just now that Warped Mouth is my past classmate." He was hanging out in society, I wasn't. Jia warned, remember, you tell your friend, he can still call someone, but there is only one chance, if the person he calls doesn't dare to take my life, he'd better not come, or else, including you, I will make you all unable to take care of yourselves. Chen Lingan desperately nodded her head and said, no, I won't let him call anyone again. Go away. Chen Lingan looked at Jia in disbelief, but Jia who turned around without saying a word and went back to the sofa to sit down. Dalong hurriedly pushed Chen Lingan and said quietly, go go go. Chen Lingan glanced at Jia with trepidation and saw him sitting there with his head tilted to look out the window, before timidly walking to the door. Determining that Jia had no intention of stopping her again, thump 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 ran to the house in one breath and slammed the door shut with a bang. Dalong also closed the door at this time, glanced at Ruyu, and let out a long sigh of relief. Ruyu, however, expressionless, walked towards the kitchen, passing by Jia saw him still looking out the window with his face turned away, and snorted coldly in her heart, what are you pretending to do? You are just scaring your brother and that little goblin. In front of me. When Ruyu walked to the kitchen to continue cooking, Dalong sat beside Jia at this time, reluctantly squeezing out a smile. Thank you you gave brother and sister-in-law out of a bad breath, now our family is finally peaceful. Jia didn't say anything. Dalong hesitated for a moment and asked, the matter here has been settled, why don't I send you back to the village after lunch? Jia didn't even look at him and said, didn't I say so? I'll go to your school in the afternoon, and I'll go back to the village in the evening. Brother, can you listen to my advice? Dalong explained, in fact, no one at school bullied me to my face, your sister-in-law said that, mainly because I am timid and fearful, and never fight with others. Your sister-in-law meant to say that I am good to be bullied, in fact, really to say, no one has scolded me to my face, and even more so, no one has beaten me. You say you go to school to find who? Chapter 11 Purely Unintentional. Jia understood what Ruyu said about Dalong being bullied. I'm afraid it's just like what she said about being bullied by Chen Lingan. It's all about some granny little things, it's not really a big feud. However, even if that was the case, he still had to make a trip to the school. One is to let Dalong's colleagues know that he has a brother who is a labor prisoner, and that if anything happens in the future, it's best to give in to Dalong. Secondly, Dalong is so honest and Ruyu is so pretty, will someone hit on Ruyu? Or maybe Ruyu was bullied at school because Dalong was too much of a wimp and didn't even dare to tell him at home? Thirdly, he wanted to use this opportunity to make Ruyu completely convince herself that she wouldn't dare to look down on Dalong in the future. If someone bullied or even seduced her, she would also think that Dalong had such a fearless brother. This will allow Ruyu to raise her eyebrows in front of outsiders, and at the same time, if she wants to go out and betray Dalong, she will have to weigh it up. Finally, there is another point. In fact, Jia already do not want to go, at least do not want to go so quickly. Half because of Ruyu. And half is for Chen Lingan. These two women are too beautiful enough to let Jia have enough reasons to hold a kind of even unrealistic fantasy about them. Don't say it, Jia said, my character and you are not unaware of, said the words, it must be done. At this time, Ruyu brought out 2 plates of food from the kitchen, said expressionlessly, big dragon, 2 tiger, eat. After saying that, she turned around and went to load the rice again. Dalong and Jia both noticed Ruyu's tone and expression, as if it didn't have the same uneasiness and panic that she had just had, as if nothing had happened. What was going on here? After a while, Ruyu brought the rice in and once again greeted the two of them on the table to eat, her face looking a lot better than just now. The dining table was a Western table, all open to seat 6 people, the 2 sides closed, just a 4-square table. Dalong and Jia sat facing each other, and Ruyu sat between them. Dalong ate 2 mouthfuls of rice, or could not help but say to Jia, brothers, I see that after dinner, I'd better drive you back, right? What's the hurry? Ruyu suddenly said, first let Arrow stay, just sleep in the 2nd bedroom. Lo had to eat Jia stunned for a moment, Dalong but desperately toward Ruyu making eyes. Ruyu, however, turned a blind eye and said to Jia, today's Sunday, you can't find anyone to go to school, if you want to go, tomorrow when you go to work, go with us. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find anyone. Jia couldn't figure out how Ruyu suddenly changed, but he still agreed cleanly. Dalong was baffled, not knowing what medicine Ruyu's gourd was selling. He looked at Ruyu with both eyes unblinking. Ruyu glared at him, what are you looking at, eat. Dalong subconsciously picked up his chopsticks. Jia couldn't stand it anymore and asked Wen Ruyu in a cold voice, "Can you be polite to him?" Dalong was startled and hurriedly said with a smile, "Arrow, your sister-in-law, and I often do this, it's okay, your sister-in-law is actually very good to me." Dalong is afraid that Arrow cannot control, backhand to Wen Ruyu a slap will be trouble. Who knows that Wen Ruyu not only didn't appreciate it, but instead stared at Arrow without moving and asked, "Who is he?" "I'll go." Wen Ruyu, who was previously scared to death by the scene of her fight, actually dared to speak to me in such a tone of voice, and had to ask me to call Dalong a brother? If I don't, look at her, she's still fucking unforgiving? Arrow similarly stared at Wen Ruyu's eyes without moving. Both of them hoped to see what they wanted to see in the other's eyes. Dalong was terrified and hurriedly explained, it's fine, our village people are uneducated, brothers and sisters call each other by their first names directly." "Who are you fooling?" Wen Ruyu turned her face and said in a bad mood, "The more rural people, the more they know the traditional etiquette, the more they know the respect of elders and children." "Ruyu?" Dalong touched Wen Ruyu's leg with his leg under the table. "What's going on?" Wen Ruyu tucked her leg inward, and accidentally, one of her legs on this side, actually touched Arrow's leg. Both of them coincidentally seemed to be electrocuted for a moment. Wen Ruyu's handsome face reddened to her neck, and quickly withdrew her legs at the same time. Arrow suppressed the waves that rose in his heart and lowered his head to start eating. Although he knew that Wen Ruyu was unintentional, he, who had never touched a woman's body before, was still unable to control the strong changes in his body as a result. Chapter 12, Wen Ruyu is a bit oblivious. Dalong awkwardly looked at Arrow and smiled bitterly, but Arrow didn't move as he ate his meal. Dalong thought that he was giving himself face, but he didn't know that Arrow's heart, touched by Wen Ruyu's leg, was messed up into a mess. Wen Ruyu just did not intend to, but this touch, to see Arrow lowered his head and ate his meal, although the face is expressionless, but the eyes appear to be a little flustered. She hearted joy, "Do not look at this kid ruthless, but the man's nature is still there, the same cannot withstand the temptation of women." At the same time, Wen Ruyu is almost 100% sure that Arrow's heart has actually fallen in love with Chen Lingan. Although Wen Ruyu was not a fan of Chen Lingan, she had to admit that Chen Lingan was indeed a beauty, but she was just too unself-respectful and played herself badly. They had just finished eating when the sound of someone's footsteps coming down the stairs came from outside the door, and as soon as Wen Ruyu and Dalong heard it, they knew it was Chen Lingan. Seeing her pass by the window, Dalong suddenly said to Wen Ruyu, "Oh, I have to go out for a while first." Wen Ruyu understood what Dalong meant, he must have gone to make peace with Chen Lingan again, so she nodded. After Dalong left, Wen Ruyu no longer had the fear she had before towards Arrow. It was said that a sister-in-law was like a mother. Although the two of them were not blood brothers, at this time, Wen Ruyu had already treated Arrow as one of her naughty little brothers. "Arrow," Wen Ruyu said, "after I finish washing the dishes, you and I will go to the walking street." Arrow looked at her expressionlessly and didn't say anything. Wen Ruyu then said, "Your clothes are too bad, tomorrow is not to go to your brother to support the face? I'm afraid that your clothes will only make your brother lose value." Arrow still didn't say anything. Wen Ruyu added, "Now the city's girls are very high, especially like Chen Lingan is beautiful girls, you wear this dress, people are lazy to look at you." "I go, so powerful? I just hit so hard, she can actually see that I like Chen Lingan?" Arrow reddened his face and defended, "Who let her see? I have never seen a girl." Wen Ruyu, with her hands holding the bowl and plate, looked at Arrow and said, "You really haven't seen such a girl, especially one as beautiful as her." After saying that, Wen Ruyu deliberately turned her head with a disdainful twist and turned towards the kitchen. Her demeanor and shapely figure made Arrow's heart flutter, thinking, "You're just prettier than her." When Wen Ruyu came out to serve the plates and bowls again, Arrow hurriedly averted his gaze to the side, not daring to meet Wen Ruyu's eyes at all. Wen Ruyu wiped the table with a rag while saying, "But I have to remind you, in Haicheng, there are many girls who look like her, or even better looking than her. She's just a Taiwanese girl, you'd better not think about it. Wait a few days to settle down, I will find a job for you with your brother, later you will find that there are many beautiful girls here." Arrow has been moved, but his mouth said, "I miss her what? Besides, I'm going back to the village after school tomorrow." Wen Ruyu said, "Also, after all, just out of prison, go back to sea also right, so next week let your brother send you back to sea and then come back." Arrow flatly refused, "I do not want him to send." Wen Ruyu glanced at him and said, "Then I send you, I can drive, also have a car." Con. She drove me? Hundreds of kilometers, round trip for 2 days, alone with her. Jia completely dare not think down, but also very contradictory, looking forward to have that opportunity. Jia has an indefinable feeling for older women, not because he has an Oedipal complex, but the first one to move him, Wu Jinhua, is almost the same age as Wen Ruyu. Wu Jinhua's mature body is still fresh in Jia mind. In fact, back then, Wu Jinhua was still a yellow flower girl, and her body was very tender, with a few similarities to Chen Lingan's body now. It was just that Jia was still young at that time, so he felt that it was particularly plump and hot, just like Wen Ruyu now. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Wen Ruyu walked into the kitchen with her plate and bowl and actually hummed a ditty. Even she herself did not realize that this was the first time in her life that she could not help but hum a ditty. In her impression, humming a small tune of women are immodest. And she comes from a family of books, since childhood, strict discipline, follow the rules, is a good image and temperament of a good woman. Sitting in the living room, Jia was even more heartfelt. He did not expect, Wen Ruyu humming a ditty when the voice is really very good, refreshing into his heart. He kept looking at the kitchen doorway, where Wen Ruyu had just disappeared, and the scene of Wu Jinhua, almost naked, dancing in front of himself surfaced before his eyes. Chapter 13, Family Meeting. When Jia Dalong returned, Wen Ruyu had also finished cleaning the kitchen. Seeing how relaxed Jia Dalong looked, Wen Ruyu knew that he must have made a deal with Chen Lingan or even gotten some sort of promise. They thought that Jia didn't know about this. Just now Jia was sitting with his back to the window. Just as Wen Ruyu unzipped her apron and was about to propose that the three of them go out on the street together to buy clothes for Jia glanced at Jia Dalong. You think you've made a deal with her, and now there's nothing going on, right? Wen Ruyu and Jia Dalong were stunned at the same time, and Jia Dalong asked back, pretending to be stupid, sh. What's settled, and with whom to talk about what? Jia said expressionlessly, back then in the village, you were so easy to trust people, and now that you are a university teacher, why are you still so brainless? The warped mouth is good that she called, but now that I was beaten to that state, it is not up to her to say whether or not she will come back to the door in the future. Jia Dalong froze for a moment, thinking that Jia was right. After all, Kaiazui and his brothers suffered a big loss. Even if Chen Lingan promised herself, I'm afraid that Kaiazui and his brothers will not let it go. Jia Dalong laughed awkwardly. When I just looked for her, she said to forget about it. And I told her that I would cover all the medical expenses for those friends of hers. Jia said in a cold voice, what about the nutritional costs, what about the nursing costs, and what about the mental damage costs? This should be our out, there is nothing to say. Jia said, don't look at the fight just one, as long as the money is paid out afterward, even if it's just medical expenses are lost. Since you lost, they will still shit and piss on your head next time. I've told you before, it's none of your business. Since I was a kid, when have I ever let you sweep up for me the mess I've made? I'm warning you again, whether it's her, or anyone else in your school, and no matter how I deal with them, you'd better stay out of it. Jia Dalong looked at him with some tears and laughter, not knowing where to start. Wen Ruyu quit. She headed to the sofa and sat down. I think we need to have a family meeting. Dalong, you sit down. You also sit over here. Jia Dalong looked at Wen Ruyu with an unbelievable face, thinking, are you on the wrong medication? How dare you think of having a meeting with But Wen Ruyu's words had already been said, and he was worried that Jia wouldn't give face, and wouldn't get along well under one roof in the future, so he immediately said, come, sit over here. Jia said in a cold voice, I'll sit here. Thank goodness. Jia Dalong did not expect Jia actually did not brush his sleeve away, and hurriedly said to Wen Ruyu, it's okay, anyway, the living room is so big, he can hear. Wen Ruyu knows that Jia Dalong is afraid of his own more serious up, Jia hard not to give face, they cannot stand, so to find a step for themselves. Although Wen Ruyu thought she had grasped Jia psychology, it was still unknown how much weight she had in his mind. Therefore, Wen Ruyu no longer forced, at the same time also in the further test, Jia on their own bottom and where. Second tiger, Wen Ruyu said, although I have not seen more powerful than you, more ruthless people, but from the first sight to see you now, although you do things that make me jaw-dropping, time and time again shocked out of a cold sweat. Still, when you think about it, you have your own bottom line and are very insightful. I'm wondering, just like what you just said to your brother, you're really a person who knows the ways of the world, and I'm afraid it has something to do with the fact that you've seen all kinds of people over the years in prison. But what I don't understand is, for someone like you who knows how to reason, why don't you know how to respect your brother? Jia Dalong hurriedly said, Xiaoyu, that's not true. Arrow respects me enough, otherwise, how could he have hit so hard just now? That's how he is, he's been bad with words since he was a kid, but his heart is hot. If anyone dares to bully me, he's the only person in this world who's willing to lay down his life to fight for me. Is that so? When Ruyu glanced at Jia Arrow and said, but I don't think he did it for you, but for his own face. No matter what, in front of outsiders you are his brother. If someone else bullies you, it's like slapping his face. He wasn't afraid of you being bullied, but he wouldn't allow anyone to hit him in the face, that's all. Jia Arrow's heart shook. This one Ruyu was really good, she can even see this? Jia Dalong of course heard what Wen Ruyu meant, but he said, hey, isn't it the same? You don't go around and around, Era didn't read any books, don't confuse him. Wen Ruyu looked at Jia Arrow with two unblinking eyes and asked, my meaning you already understand, right? Jia Arrow asked back without moving, just say what you want to do, right? Chapter 14, Jia Arrow does not buy the account. When Ruyu said, my meaning is very simple, now we are a family, what's going on in Jeja village is out of my hands, and other people's families are not related to me, but our family must have rules. Jia Dalong heard, thought, you really intend to let him live here for the rest of his life? If that's the case, I'm afraid the rules of this house are not set by you, but by him. As Jia Dalong was about to speak, when Ruyu glared at him. Jia Dalong awkwardly glanced at Jia Arrow and smiled bitterly, not daring to say anything. He wasn't afraid of Wen Ruyu. Rather, he was worried that in case Wen Ruyu really got into a fight with herself, Jia Arrow would not be able to see eye to eye, and at the drop of a hat, he would wave his hand and slap Wen Ruyu's pretty face. Wen Ruyu also know that they do so, is to take a big risk. Wen Ruyu knew Jia Arrow's mentality, even if it wasn't for Jia Dalong, even if it was for his own face, once he was pissed off, he would definitely not show any mercy when he laid his hands on her. Wen Ruyu was gambling. She was betting that Jia Arrow, who was in puberty and had just been released from prison and had barely seen a woman, would have some sort of fantasy about her. She wanted to see, in Jia Arrow's heart, whether it was his face that mattered, or his fantasies about himself that mattered. Jia Arrow didn't move and asked, what rules do you want to set? Arrow he actually listened to what rules Wen Ruyu was setting up? This surprised Jia Dalong greatly. When Ruyu said, there are no other rules, but the relationship between us has to be smoothed out, he is your brother, I am your sister-in-law, from now on, I don't want to hear you call your brother by his first name. Jia Arrow kept staring at Wen Ruyu, not saying anything for half a day. This request was not only not high, it was even natural. But Jia Arrow's gaze made Wen Ruyu's heart a little hairy. Jia Dalong also did not expect that Jia Arrow had such deep preconceptions about himself. Was he not even willing to call him a brother? But he didn't want to make everyone embarrassed because of this. When Jia Dalong was ready to round up the situation, Jia Arrow popped out of his mouth almost word for word, other things, yes. This matter, exempt from negotiation. After saying that, Jia Arrow directly walked towards the second bedroom. When Ruyu was confused, did I really see him wrong, actually so do not give face, not just call a brother? Jia Dalong was originally his brother. Since this is the case, when Ruyu seems to be a bit annoyed, but also a bit out of the blue, then you do not stay in this home does not welcome you. When Jia Dalong reached out to grab Wen Ruyu's hand, Wen Ruyu vigorously shook his hand away. Jia Arrow slowly turned around. Wen Ruyu was so nervous that goosebumps rose all over her body, but still stood there stiffly, staring colorfully into Jia Arrow's eyes. Jia Arrow said, I do not want to stay in this home, you let me wait until tomorrow I will leave. However, you can rest assured that I will leave after settling the matter of your school and warped mouth. After saying that, he directly into the second bedroom, head fell on the bed. For the first time in 6 years, Jia Arrow was carefree, sleeping on a neat and clean bed, and in no time he was snoring loudly. Jia Dalong immediately pulled Wen Ruyu into the master bedroom, closed the door and asked, what's wrong with you today, why are you forcing him to do what he doesn't want to do? When Ruyu asked rhetorically, so you mean, in the future he lives in the house, no matter in front of or behind the people, call you Jia Dalong by your first name, call me Wen Ruyu? Doesn't everything have to be done slowly? Jia Dalong sighed, ruthless, in fact, he is very understanding, but also very kind. Cut. When Ruyu glanced at Jia Dalong asked, kind two words used in his body, a little inappropriate, right? Jia Dalong shook his head and said, he is now this way, in fact, are forced by the village. When he was small, he was very good and smart. If it wasn't for my father's death, not only would he have been able to get into college, but it would have been a prestigious university. Let me tell you this, I guarantee that in a few days, he'll be calling you sister-in-law. As for me, it doesn't matter. What doesn't matter? You are his brother. When Ruyu pondered for a while and said, by the way, why in the world did he kill someone? Just say that your family was bullied in the first place. How exactly was it bullied? That is the eternal pain in Jia Dalong's heart and the shadow that cannot be erased. Speaking of which, the reason why he was now acting so helpless in bed to Wen Ruyu was also related to his years in the village, so it was difficult to talk about it. Chapter 15 Sleeping Confused. Jia Dalong said, this is a long story, when I have time, I will tell you more carefully. I know that you are hoping that he will be able to integrate into the current society as soon as possible, but the most critical years of his adolescence were spent in prison. We should give him a slow adaptation process. Besides, I originally thought that these few years of rehabilitation would bring him back to that simple, kind, humble and good-natured childhood, but I didn't realize that he seems to be even more brutal than in the past. I am now considering whether promising the leader to temporarily shelter him is the right choice, thinking about whether to directly send him back to the village. When Ruyu was stunned, what, the leader has approached you? Jia Dalong nodded, yes, when he was sentenced, his heart is full of grievances, the village people are worried that he went back to the crazy revenge, so one level to find, and finally through the province to find the school, I had to agree to temporarily accept him. When Ruyu looked very surprised at him, thinking, so you are not out of brotherly love, willingly take him in awe. No wonder he refused to address you as his brother. Although when Ruyu wasn't sure of the reason, Jia Dalong's state of mind was enough to prove that the two brothers' past feelings were average, and possibly even devoid of any feelings to speak of. When Ruyu said, forget it, since the school leader has come out to you, let's try to take him in. Don't forget, the school is preparing to mention you as an associate professor, this time to send the second tiger back, in case something really happened. I'm afraid that the school is not good to the province to account for, your associate professor 80% is to be soaked. When Ruyu's mouth said grandiose, seemingly for the leadership to solve the problem, but also for the sake of Jia Dalong's future. But what she really thinks in her heart, only she knows. Jia Dalong smiled bitterly and said, it's good that your wife understands, so don't push him too hard. When Ruyu nodded, I have it in my heart. But with a wild nature like his, we need to properly temper and teach him. In the future, the two of us will sing one red face and one white face, so you need to cooperate. Seeing Jia Dalong face difficult look, when Ruyu added, don't worry, we'll not let you embarrassed, in the future the good man left you to do, I will do the bad man. Jia Dalong hemmed and hawed, but you also have to pay attention to the proportion, look at his means to the one upstairs, the woman is also relentless. What are you afraid of? I am his sister-in-law. When Ruyu said, as the saying goes, there is a way to steal. He has spent so much time in prison, more or less he will learn a little bit of social morality, right? I don't believe that he is really lawless and reckless, even his own sister-in-law is beaten. After saying that, when Ruyu opened the door to her room and walked to the door of the second bedroom and knocked on the door, Jia Dalong asked in disbelief, what are you doing? Tell him to get up and go to Walking Street to buy clothes together. Did not wait for Jia Ero to open the door, when Ruyu directly twisted the door handle and saw Jia Ero lying on the bed snoring. The most intolerable thing is, Jia Ero feet are still wearing that pair of sneakers, the clean room stepped everywhere in the shoe prints even if, sleeping in bed do not take off shoes? Originally, when Ruyu thought that Jia Ero was a person with a bottom line, but she didn't realize that she didn't have any education at all. Jia Dalong just wanted to pull Wen Ruyu out, but it was too late. When Ruyu walked to the edge of the bed and reached out to push on Jia Ero's shoulders, hey, Ero, get up, get up. Jia Ero muttered in a daze and turned to face inside. Ero, get up, get up. When Ruyu continued to push Jia Ero's shoulder, did not expect Jia Ero suddenly turned back, according to Wen Ruyu's abdomen is a foot. With a plopping sound, Wen Ruyu was directly kicked by him and sat on her but on the ground. Jia Dalong was shocked and shouted out loud, Ero, what are you doing? She is your sister-in-law. Jia Ero, however, was still snoring. Jia Dalong hurriedly helped Wen Ruyu up from the ground. Wen Ruyu didn't know where she got the courage from, or she was a bit annoyed. She stood up and directly kicked at Jia Ero's ass with her foot. Jia Ero, get up. Although she was wearing slippers, this kick was quite heavy. Jia Ero's snoring stopped, slowly turned around, opened his eyes in a daze, saw Jia Dalong and Wen Ruyu standing beside the bed, and asked in confusion, what's going on? Just now I received a kick for nothing Look at his appearance, completely unaware of just kicked Wen Ruyu a foot. Jia Dalong said, "Your sister-in-law just called you, you kicked her to the ground." Jia Ero realized that when Ruyu was looking at herself with a face of anger, but that look was quite beautiful, a cold beauty. Originally wanted to say sorry, because Jia Dalong on the side, Jia Ero just coldly asked when Ruyu again, "What?" Chapter 16 Encountered Road Rage. See, Jia Ero is not intentional, much less like in pretend. When Ruyu gas cancelled half, just Jia Dalong on the side, she still sullen face and said, "After dinner is not good, we go to the street to buy clothes?" Jia Ero looked impatient and said, "Buy what clothes? I will go home tomorrow, this outfit is quite good, I want to sleep." "Then you will not go to school tomorrow?" When Ruyu said, "I said, you will only disgrace your brother if you go in these clothes." Jia Dalong said at this time, "To not count, let him sleep, look at the number of his clothes, we go to buy it can be." "No way." When Ruyu said, "Buy clothes for him and still so many problems, when we eat, do we still have to send the meal to the bed to feed him?" Jia Ero thought, "This is not to raise the bar, I did not let you buy clothes for me?" Seeing Jia Ero's eyes closed, Jia Dalong was about to pull when Ruyu out when Jia Ero suddenly sat up at once. He was covered with a blanket and was wearing an undershirt underneath. This sudden sitting up made the black chest hairs on his chest show up, making when Ruyu blush. Jia Dalong was completely a white chicken, and I didn't realize that Jia Ero was actually a green dragon. In order to not let them see that she was out of shape, when Ruyu turned around and walked towards the door. Jia Dalong said at this point, "If you really want to sleep, then go ahead and sleep, I'll just go buy it with your sister-in-law." Without saying a word, Jia Ero put his clothes back on, got up and walked directly towards the door. Jia Dalong was a bit puzzled, is this a case of one thing leading to another? If that was the case, then the tightrope that bound him had been found. Thinking of this, the corner of Jia Dalong's mouth flashed a smug smile. When Ruyu can really control Jia Ero, Jia Dalong is also considered to successfully complete the task entrusted by the leadership. The evaluation of the title of associate professor should be no problem. Of course, he also hoped that Jia Ero's life would be on the right track from now on. Although with Jia Ero cannot talk about what brotherly feelings, but the gift of roses, the hands of the reason he still understands. Jia Ero's ruthlessness was his fatal shortcoming. There is such a brother's existence, school leaders and colleagues, I'm afraid that I have to be afraid of 3 points, right? Driving in the city, a small car is more convenient than a big car. After when Ruyu went out, she directly opened her 2-box car. Jia Dalong pulled open the passenger door, politely let Jia Ero sit. Jia Ero directly pulled open the door of the rear seat and sat in. He just probed in, and what came to his nose, again, was the kind of elegant fragrance on Wen Ruyu's body, and it was even more intense. Taking a deep breath, it felt like lying in Wen Ruyu's arms. This made him have a strong desire for Wen Ruyu's body. However, he was very clear. Regardless of his relationship with Jia Dalong, and regardless of whether he was a blood brother or not, he could not make any attempts on Wen Ruyu. He forced his brain to conjure up Chen Lingan's shadow. The overly slim Chen Lingan, although not comparable to the sexy Wen Ruyu, but her delicate face, snow-white skin, and full of exudes, than Wen Ruyu's body, more likely to make people excited about the perfume smell, but also has been in Jia Ero's olfactory system dense. If it was said that conceiving in Wen Ruyu's arms was a comfortable sense of fulfillment, then lying on Chen Lingan's body definitely highlights one's fulfillment as a man. Jia Ero began to brainstorm about himself and Chen Lingan together. However, it didn't take long for Chen Lingan's appearance to morph back into Wu Jinoa's shadow in his mind. It's been 6 years, I don't know how Wu Jinoa is doing. Thinking that Jia Dalong said that he had returned to the village 2 years ago, Jia Ero wanted to ask, but thought better of it. Anyway, he could go back soon. In fact, Jia Ero has not had the experience of being with a woman, not to mention the experience of being with a woman, the kind of wonderful to the top of the pleasure. Just when he was in the clouds, the ear suddenly came a man's rough voice, paralyzed, "Will not drive, don't go on the road ah." A luxury car is driving side by side with Wen Ruyu's car, the passenger side of the window glass has been lowered, a 30 or so, greasy head, looks like a successful man, is fierce and vicious glaring at the driving Wen Ruyu. The city driving road is narrow, there is a divided guardrail in the middle, coupled with Wen Ruyu usually take Jia Dalong's car to work, she seldom drove herself, the level is also really limited, so drive very slowly. It so happens that there is a delivery of recycled waste next to the agricultural vehicle, has been parallel with Wen Ruyu's car, slightly behind half the body. This luxury car after Wen Ruyu's car, honked a few times, hoping that when Ruyu can accelerate, he can follow behind to change lanes to overtake the agricultural vehicle. One Ruyu were dare to accelerate, has been driving at a constant speed. About a few hundred meters later, only all over the side of the agricultural vehicle, the luxury car from the back of the lane overtaking up, and immediately lowered the window to One Ruyu cursing. Chapter 17, I have to be humiliated. One Ruyu knew that the other party was cursing herself, but because she didn't dare to distract herself, she didn't incline her head. Dalong saw the other party's ferocious appearance, forgetting that Ero was sitting in the back, and said in a bit of panic, "Don't pay attention to him, drive slowly." Because of the car film, the limousine driver could not see Wen Ruyu's face, but realized that it was a female driver, spit a mouthful of B*TCH, suddenly hit the direction, directly changing lanes to part with Wen Ruyu. Wen Ruyu screamed in fear. Just as she reflexively wanted to hit the direction, Dalong grabbed the steering wheel and said, "Steady, point the brake. If you hit the direction, the car is going to hit the guardrail in the middle of the road." Emergency braking, but also afraid of rear end, so Dalong let her steady steering wheel gently brake. Just then, he heard the sound of the door opening behind him, which reminded him that Eru was sitting behind him. Eru. He was just about to remind that it was now in motion and he couldn't open the door, when Eru had already leapt out, pointing the ground with one leg, and the whole person was like a black swallow, pouncing directly at the limousine in front of him. After the driver of the luxury car saw the rear car's dilemma from the inside view mirror, the corner of his mouth spread a disdainful sneer. Just as he was about to accelerate, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a black shadow, drilling in through the passenger window. Tian. Dalong was completely blinded. "What's going on?" Wen Ruyu asked in disbelief. Era drilled into his car. Wen Ruyu looked puzzled to look at Dalong a glance, thought, "What dream words it, now the car is traveling in the process, Ero how to get off, and how to drill into other people's cars." But she looked in the inner vision mirror, where is the shadow of Ero on the back seat? The limousine driver was startled by the sudden arrival of Ero. Ero came in first on two legs, and when he sat up straight, the limousine driver was so scared that he shivered, and his hands on the steering wheel shook violently. "Pull over and stop." Ero gazed ahead with both eyes and said coldly. "You, who are you?" The limousine driver asked. Snap. Without even looking at him, Ero slapped him across the face, solidly leaving 5 claw marks on his face. Crap, the limousine driver endured the hot stinging pain on his face and cursed, "You hillbilly, do you know who I am?" Slap. Another slap covered his face. A stream of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. While his eyes were glowing, he felt that at least 2 of his side teeth were slapped out. He immediately pulled over to the side of the road, and before even unbuckling his seatbelt, he directly lunged over and struck Ero's face with his elbow. It was evident that he was definitely not a good fighter. There was a click. Ero raised his hand and the limousine driver's elbow joint was dislocated. The limousine driver opened his mouth wide, and before he could scream, Ero backhandedly slapped him across the face again. He felt one side of his face numb with pain, not his own at all. When Ruyu's car stopped in front of his car, when Ruyu and Dalong down from the car, Ero pushed the door off. "Hey, you still want to run?" When the limo driver saw Ero get out of the car, he couldn't care less about the pain in his face and his dislocated elbow, and pushed the door open while undoing his seatbelt. Just as he was about to get out of the car, he realized that Ero had already gone from the front of the car, around to this side. Holy shit, he's not trying to run? It was too late for the limousine driver to close the door again. Ero directly dragged him down from the car, snapped left and right and slapped him a few times. He felt the sky and earth spinning, his eyes were gold, and everything he looked at was a double image. That skin-opening pain was even more painful. There was a plopping sound. The limousine driver felt the back fossa of his knee, hit by something and immediately fell to his knees. Ero reached out and pinched his shoulder blades hard. Io, brother spare your life, brother spare your life." The limousine driver's cheeks reddened and his veins popped out as he pleaded, "Brother, I didn't provoke you." When Ruyu and Dalong have come to the front, Ero said to the limousine driver, "Apologize to the lady." The limousine driver looked at Wen Ruyu in a daze, thinking, "Who is it? I don't recognize it." But in an instant he reacted, "Damn, she is the female driver. If I had known she was so beautiful and graceful, I wouldn't have scolded her." Ero's hand again a force, the limousine driver howled, "Egu, sorry, aunt, sorry." Jia Dalong saw him in agony, his own heart jumped a little, was ready to go forward to persuade Jia Ero, but when Ruyu reached out to block him. Although when Ruyu was a kind-hearted person, the first time she saw someone take action for her to teach someone else a lesson, her heart was actually particularly flattered. In the past, when she was angry with others, she always imagined that Jia Dalong could stand up for himself, even if he couldn't beat her, even if it was just a bite, it would be fine. But Jia Dalong let her down every time. When Ruyu never dreamed that her wish would be realized today. And the one who helped her fulfill this wish was actually Jia Ero. Jia Ero's hand was too heavy. One side of the limousine driver's face was red and swollen like a peach, when Ruyu not only didn't feel miserable and couldn't bear to look at it, she even had a feeling of raising her eyebrows. Passers-by constantly threw curious gazes at them, not knowing what was going on. Seeing that there was a man and a woman, a greasy man kneeling on the ground, and a woman with excellent posture standing on the side, they thought that the adultery had been exposed again, and they had been caught in bed. The limousine driver endured the severe pain while woefully trying to keep his head down as much as possible. He was also considered a dignified person in Haicheng. Once he was seen by his acquaintances, it would be a big scandal. 2 June? Jia Ero looked at the limousine driver and asked. Yes. The limousine driver was stunned and responded offhandedly. He was wondering, how does this country bumpkin know me? The owner of Violet KTV? Jia Ero asked again. I'll go, know what I do, but still fucking dare. Chapter 18, Fighting is your kind of people. 2 June is exactly the boss of Violet KTV. He knelt on the ground, slightly twisted his head and glanced at Jia Ero, hoping to see regret or even fear in his eyes. But 2 June was disappointed. Jia Ero once again secretly made a push, and 2 June's shoulder blade felt like it was going to explode. Egu, brother, have something to say. Since you know who I am, you should also know that I am not a bad person. Once Jia Dalong heard that he was the boss of Violet KTV, he was scared to death. He had been to Violet KTV with his colleagues, and had heard that the boss there was well known in both the red and black streets of Haicheng, or else he wouldn't be able to do this kind of business. He was trying to stop Jia Ero when he heard Jia Ero sneer, "You are not bad for people?" You probably want to say, since I know that you are the boss of the KTV, should know that you ate in Haicheng more open, red and black both have people, right? What I'm fighting is people like you who have people everywhere. After saying that, Jia Ero slapped him 2 more times. I'll be damned. Is this guy a plague or a fool? Egu, brother, spare your life, brother, spare your life. Jia Ero said, the road is open to the sky, each go one way, people walk their sunny road, you cross your wooden bridge, we are all driving on the road, why do you want to curse? Why don't you want a car? Don't dare, don't dare. Don't tell me you don't dare. I'm afraid you're thinking, as long as I let you go, you'll make me look good as a redneck, right? Fuck, he knows what I'm thinking? Brother, I know it's just a misunderstanding, as long as you let me go, I'll never get you in trouble. It's okay, I'll give you a chance. Tonight at 8 o'clock, I'll go to your KTV, and you gather all the people you know in the red and black. Remember, I only give you one chance. Either your people put me flat, or I let your KTV closed. 2 June thought, count your kid ruthless, then we'll see. Tonight if you do not let you skin is skin, bone is bone, I will not mix in Haicheng. But on his lips he said, no problem, night brother passed my treat, my treat. Jia Ero let go of his hand and shone a kick at his neck, roll. 2 June hurriedly climbed up, saw the surrounding passers-by more and more surrounded, hurriedly lowered his head and got into the car and left, not wanting to stay a moment longer. However, he still paid attention to look at Wen Ruyu's license plate number. If Jia Ero did not go to the KTV at night, he will definitely find Wen Ruyu with the license plate number. After the car left in a puff of smoke, 2 June immediately began to call. Hello, Warped Mouth? Where are you? The original Warped Mouth is to him to see the scene of the horse, how he did not expect. Warped Mouth has been Jia Ero beat hospitalized. Oh, boss, I'm hospitalized. Hospitalized? Why? Don't mention it. A couple of brothers were in a car accident. He doesn't dare to say he's been beaten up. Is it serious? No one's dead, but it's not serious. Boss, what's the matter? Forget it, I'll find someone else. After saying that, he dialed the phone of Big Head, the boss of the Warped Mouth. Big Head is one of the 4 kings of Haicheng society, and he is the one who introduced Warped Mouth to the scene. Big head, bring some people to the KTV tonight, someone is looking for me. Where's Kyojio? He was hospitalized in a traffic accident. Oh. Who's giving you trouble? It's hard to say. On the surface, it's an outsider, a country bumpkin in his 20s. I don't know if there's someone behind it. Before he thought it was a simple accidental conflict, but Jia Ero not only knew who he was and what he did, but also took the initiative to find him at night. He felt that things weren't that simple. Okay, then let's meet at night and talk about it. After Jia Ero and the others got into the car, when Ruyu was a little excited to drive the car, but Jia Dalong asked with palpitations, Eru, since you know who he is, you still dare to hit him with your hands? Jia Ero said in a cold voice, who told him to curse and stop the car. Jia Dalong smiled bitterly and said, driving meet this kind of people is very normal, bear a little bit will not be all. Right? Jia Ero disdain, you are used to, I'm not used to. Jia Dalong face red for a while, white for a while, half a day did not say anything. Wait until when Ruyu parked the car in the parking lot of the pedestrian street, Jia Dalong said, anyway, we did not lose, you do not go at night. Jia Ero said, you think it's okay not to go, what kind of good stuff do you think that guy is? He must have memorized his sister-in-law's license plate number, if I don't go to him, he will come to me. Hearing Jia Ero suddenly call herself sister-in-law, when Ruyu was a little heartbroken, it seems that Jia Ero was not completely hopeless. Seeing that Jia Dalong still wanted to say something, when Ruyu suddenly came out with a sentence, Ero was right, anyway, he is not afraid of the other party, so he can go if he wants to. Jia Dalong looked at Wen Ruyu with a surprised face, thinking, really long hair, short insight, do you know how powerful Tu Jun is in Haichang? Jia Ero and Wen Ruyu both got out of the car. Jia Dalong was already in disarray because of his fear, or was he still in the mood to shop? You guys go, I will take a lunch break in the car. Wen Ruyu knew that he was just scared, blanked him and turned to Ero and said, let's go. Jia Ero froze for a moment. Don't look at him on the surface of the Jia Dalong always cold eyes, in fact, just mourn his misfortune, angry, heart of Jia Dalong that brotherly love is still there. Otherwise, he would not have just walked out of the prison door, and risked the risk of going back to prison at any time, to stand up for Jia Dalong. Originally 3 people shopping together, Jia Ero still seems a bit more natural and relaxed. Jia Dalong suddenly does not want to shop, let him alone with Wen Ruyu, he really has not prepared for this thought. He really wasn't ready for this. Wen Ruyu reached out and tugged on Jia Ero's arm. Chapter 19 Gaoida's Trap. Jia Ero inexplicably winced, goosebumps popping up all over his body. He hurriedly turned around and walked towards the front, taking the opportunity to shake off Wen Ruyu's hand. After they left one after the other, Jia Dalong immediately took out his cell phone and made several calls in a row, wanting to find someone to make peace with him and make amends. He didn't want Jia Ero to stir up any more trouble. But when everyone heard that he had offended Tu Jun, they didn't even ask why. They opened their mouths to complain about him. How could he have messed with Tu Jun? Mr. Jia, how did you get into trouble with him? A friend said, it's not a problem if it's someone else, but he's someone who is well known in both the red and black worlds, so where would he sell my face? Besides, I don't know him well enough to talk to him. Another friend said, old Jia, you cannot even Tu Jun do not know it? In Haichang, he is the one who walks sideways. If it's a small matter, you'll go to the door to make amends, and hope he doesn't ask for too much. If it's a big deal, I suggest you call the police, and don't even think about settling the case. You're a college teacher, where can you play him? There is a friend said, Big Dragon, I cannot help this favor, also advise you not to look for anyone, we have no one in this circle with his friendship, the only thing you can do is to call the police, or let him slaughter. There is another way, that is to leave Haichang, don't come back in this life. Although his friends refused to help one by one, Jia Dalong didn't resent them. After all, Tu Jun's reputation in Haichang was too big, no one dared to stand up for himself. Jia Dalong threw his cell phone to the side and leaned on the back of the seat in despair. Suddenly he sat up violently, hurriedly picked up the phone, dialed the vice principal Gaoida's phone. Gaoida is a local of Haichang. In addition to his family background, there are many friends in the community. Now there is only to beg him. Who knows that Gaoida heard that he was going to find Tu Jun, the same did not ask what the reason was, but only said in surprise, find him? Difficult. Even Gaoida did not dare to come forward. Jia Dalong is completely desperate. Old Jia, Gaoida then asked, what is it? Jia Dalong hurriedly said what just happened. Gaoida frowned, your brother, is that just released from prison? Yes, Jia Dalong almost cried, originally I did not think to stay in Haichang, but the school leadership stepped in to let me. Gao Ida interrupted him and said, I know. I'll try to find someone, but I can't guarantee it. Jia Dalong was like a drowning man grasping the last straw. Vice Principal Gao, thank you. If this matter is settled, I, Jia Dalong, will be grateful to you for the rest of my life. Gao Ida laughed, Old Jia, don't keep writing blank checks, you still owe me a meal for your title appraisal. Gao Ida's pattern is not small enough to knock a meal out of someone. In fact, with Jia Dalong's ability, he should have been recognized as an associate professor long ago, but he has been stuck here in Gao Ida. Gao Ida has been eyeing Wen Ruyu for a long time. After 3 consecutive years of failure, Jia Dalong found Gao Ida, hoping that he would help himself because Wen Ruyu and his wife Bai Jiaping are bosom friends. Little did Jia Dalong know that Gao Ida's problem was that he had failed to be recognized. Gao Ida guaranteed that he would do this favor no matter what this year, but then smiled and said, I heard Jiaping say that your little Wen's skills are good, and the food is especially good, so when are you going to invite me to your home to try it? Jia Dalong is not a fool. From Gao Ida's lewd expression, I know what he wants to do. However, the fact that he hadn't gotten a title for several years in a row made Jia Dalong feel like he couldn't hold his head up in front of his co-workers. Besides, he knew Wen Ruyu's character. If Gao Ida had this idea, Wen Ruyu wouldn't agree. So he pretended to be stupid, as if he didn't see Gao Ida's real intention, and promised Gao Ida that he would invite him to his home for dinner as soon as possible. Gao Ida's rehashing of this matter seemed to be too much to wait. Jia Dalong immediately said, Don't worry, I'll make up for it when the time comes, one piece at a time. After Gao Ida put down the phone, he immediately picked up his cell phone and dialed Tu Jun's cell phone number. Aya, big brother Gao, why do you have arrangements for the night? Gao Ida lied to Jia Dalong, his relationship with Tu Jun is quite extraordinary. I'm asking you, you were beaten by our school teacher Jia's brother today? Tu Jun froze for a moment and immediately said in a fiery voice, Oh, the one wearing glasses is a teacher in your school, ah? Mad, I've never suffered such a big loss in my life. Brother Gao, other things are fine, this is something I won't let that kid off easily. What, you won't give me face? No, Tu Jun explained, Tu Jun can have today, has always been dependent on the big brother you, even if I do not give face to the city leaders, but also cannot not give face to you ah. It's just that I've lost a lot of people today, and it's not something that can be solved with a meal and an apology. Gao Ida nodded, this is more or less. You remember, no matter who is looking for you for this, you don't have to care, how to rectify, how to get, but give me a little space. I did not look for you, you just do not get him killed can, once I gave you a call, you have to not hesitate to give me face. Understood? Understood, big brother Gao. Tu Jun turned to ask, by the way, can you tell me where your teacher Jia's family lives? Gao Ida said, Sunshine International District, 3 buildings, a unit 101 room. Good Lu, thank you big brother. Tu Jun hung up the phone, thinking, Gao Ida this is with Mr. Jia have a grudge ah? Just that bitch, should be Jia teacher's wife, Gao Ida is not on the wife of others, right? The so-called things are gathered, people are divided into groups, Tu Jun still understand Gao Ida's. After Gao Ida hung up the phone, he thought, Gao Ida has a grudge against Mr. Jia. After Gao Ida hung up the phone, clicked on the cell phone album, to find out the photos of Wen Ruyu hidden inside, one by one sliding, at the same time, constantly touching, the photos of Wen Ruyu's face and chest. First, it was the matter of Jia Dalong's appraisal of his title, and now it was Jia Era who messed with Tu Jun. Gao Ida felt that an opportunity had arisen, and perhaps a dream would come true soon. Chapter 20 The Elegant by Jiaping. After hanging up his cell phone, Jia Dalong let out a long sigh of relief. Although Gao Ida didn't pack his bags, he was willing to step in, and with his connections in Haicheng, this could definitely be fixed, it was just a matter of how much money to use. By the time Jia Dalong looked forward, he had long since lost sight of Jia Eru and Wen Ruyu. Wen Ruyu led Jia Eru into a high-end clothing specialty store, immediately attracting the attention of many shoppers and customers. This kind of place, rich man with honey, rich woman with white in and out, although it is the norm, but both sexy, but also beautiful, such as Wen Ruyu's rich woman is really rare, handsome but full of manly wild, but also wearing a stall goods such as Jia Eru's white man, is more of a rare corner. The men are jealous of Jia Eru, to be able to evening Wen Ruyu so beautiful rich woman. Women are envious of Wen Ruyu, can be wrapped up in such a young and handsome, but also masculine white man. Wen Ruyu led Jia Eru to the men's clothing area and selected a few t-shirts and slacks for him to try on for size in the changing room. People rely on clothes and horses rely on saddles. Jia, who changed into a t-shirt and slacks, instantly upgraded his taste by several grades, and his previous earthiness instantly disappeared without a trace, looking no different from a rich second-generation son. If they did not see the way they entered the door, the people present were afraid to think that they were a pair of lovers. Seeing Jia's appearance, Ruyu actually inexplicably blushed. She bought 2 sets of t-shirts and slacks for Jia, another suit and 2 shirts, and a pair of leather shoes. When checking out, Jia took a look and actually wanted more than $5,000. He secretly smacked his lips, but tried to behave as immobile as possible. Originally, Jia was ready to change into that old set of clothes, but when Ruyu let him wear the new ones, and also let him change into leather shoes. After Jia changed his clothes and shoes, Ruyu picked up his old clothes and sneakers and was ready to throw them into the trash can, but Jia hurriedly said, "I'll do it myself." Unexpectedly, Ruyu's hand was fast and lifted up his shoes, but was almost smoked over by the strange and incomparable odor emitted by those shoes. Ruyu tilted her head, then looked at Jia with an incredulous expression. Jia's cheeks reddened and explained, "I have sweaty feet, so I didn't take off my shoes when I entered the room." "I see. It seems he's not as uneducated as he thought he was." After throwing her old clothes and shoes into the trash can, Ruyu walked out of the store shoulder to shoulder with Jia, habitually reaching out to take Jia's arm. Jia's heart skipped a wild beat. He wanted to pull his arm away, but he was a little reluctant to do so. Ruyu. Suddenly a familiar woman's nightingale-like voice came from behind him. That voice was pleasant to Jia's ears, but it startled Ruyu. She hurriedly retracted her hand, turned around and saw that it was really Gaoida's wife, Bai Jieping, and thought to herself, "It's over, I don't know how long I'll have to be gossiped about by her again." "White director good, you also shopping ah?" Ruyu stiffly and reluctantly smiled a greeting. Jia turned around and looked, his heart was shocked. "I go, scourge level of the beauty of the woman ah." White Jieping is now the director of the Development Zone office, when the city of Haicheng song and dance troupe dancers, and later transferred to the city TV station as a host and station manager. Her body tall and straight, a head of shoulder hair flowing smooth, eyes large and watery, skin and Ruyu is white and flawless, figure between Ruyu and Chen Lingan. Sexier than Chen Lingan, slimmer than Ruyu. She is already 32 this year, and has a son in 1st grade, but in Jia's opinion, she is at most 25 or 6 years old. She looked older than Chen Lingan, but younger than Ruyu. In fact, Ruyu was only 28 this year, 4 years younger than Bai Jieping. Bai Jieping's eyes picked, glanced at Jia and asked Ruyu, "Who is this little handsome man?" Jia was her pair of eyes with hooks, looking straight up goosebumps, cannot help but shrink the body. Ruyu no, Bai Jieping that ambiguous gaze, never to Jia have any meaning, but misunderstood their relationship with Jia, cannot help but red face to explain, he is the old Jia's younger brother Eru, this is our high vice principal's lover, but also the development zone office of the white director. Jia smiled at Bai Jieping in a somewhat formal manner, and immediately turned his gaze to the side. Bai Jieping was stunned and asked in confusion, "When did your old Jia come up with a younger brother? Dalong, who, are they still blood brothers?" In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Ruyu said, "Of course they are blood brothers, why, haven't you heard Vice Principal Gao say it?" "No," Bai Jieping asked, "does our Mr. Gao know about this?" "Of course, do not believe you go back and ask to know." Bai Jieping once again sized up Jia, reached out and picked up Ruyu's arm, while walking towards the front, while whispering and flirting, "Ruyu, your family will not be staged in the Golden Lotus, right? I can see that they are good girlfriends, that's why they joke around." Ruyu had just taken Jia's arm, and when she heard what sounded like her voice, she knew that she would definitely be flirted with by her without a bottom line. Ruyu's face redness all of a sudden ran into the neck, "I say white big director, can be serious point? This is not like a leader's wife, much less a leader's words." Bai Jieping glanced back at Jia, turned to Ruyu and said, "In front of me and still prude? Look at his body, you no longer need to face the old Jia all day long, like a whining woman. Take advantage of this small jaw has not opened branch, more work on him, maybe also pick up a virgin for nothing." Chapter 21 This girl is hot. Sweat furiously. If it was someone else, Ruyu would have sprayed, the joke was indeed too much. The problem is that in addition to the two are girlfriends, Bai Jieping's husband Gaoida, or Ruyu and Jia Dalong's leadership, in addition to Jia Dalong's associate professor title, they also want to share a house in the school. Although the share of the house to spend money to buy, but without a certain level is not able to enjoy the indicators and treatment of home purchase. And all of this, Gao Ida had quite a say. The relationship between the two of them is too good, Jia Dalong cannot work in that area of the matter, Bai Jieping also she told Gao Ida. Her purpose was to hold the blame for Wen Ruyu, who knew that it lit up Gao Ida's philandering. In order to cover up her inner waves, when Ruyu sneered back and said, "White big director, they say 30 like a wolf, 40 like a tiger, you are like a wolf like a tiger age, is it not being tossed by the high vice principal is not too much, they want to change their appetite, but take me to say something, right?" Bai Jieping glanced at Jia Ero again and said with a cheeky smile, "I would like to see the old cow nibbling on the young grass, but I can't help it that you are close to the water tower first, and the fertilizer is not flowing outside the people's fields days." When Ruyu incredibly shook his head, "What is wrong with you today, what words dare to say, is not the high vice principal of the day, overworked, long time no plowing, put you to Baron?" Bai Jieping came to Wen Ruyu's ear and said, "You really don't want to set up a chaste house, I don't believe that you can endure the old Jia for a lifetime." Wen Ruyu was speechless by her dislike and could only shake her head in tears and laughter. Wen Ruyu and Bai Jieping were undoubtedly one of the most beautiful sights on the pedestrian street. Both of them were gorgeous in appearance, with skin as fair as snow, and had the look and temperament to be both sexy and elegant, causing Jia Ero to remain motionless on the surface, but out of the corner of his eye, he was unwilling to move away from their backs for a moment. In Jia Ero's opinion, one of them is the director of the office, one is a university teacher, what they talk about is definitely elegant topics, how can I not expect, these two young women who are beautiful to the extreme, but they have been talking about themselves. And simple and rough. Sitting in the sedan, Jia Dalong saw Bai Jieping and Wen Ruyu, Jia Ero a piece of walking over, hurriedly pushed the door to get out of the car, far away from the face of a pile of smiles shouted, "White director good." Just now also when Wen Ruyu laughing non-stop, Bai Jieping, see Jia Dalong, immediately changed to look, small chest high, head up, close the chin, waist straight, a strong woman's faction immediately appeared. Jia Ero found that Bai Jieping is really an interpersonal thing, laughing when the flavor of the world, when the pose of overbearing. Jia Ero imagined himself lying on the scene of Bai Jieping's body, especially a sense of accomplishment. "Mr. Jia is good." Bai Jieping courteously greeted Jia Dalong, and then asked, "How come you didn't go to the store together?" "Oh, I just had something to do." Jia Dalong turned to ask, "Why are you shopping alone? Let's send you home." "No, I drove the car over." Bai Jieping turned her head to look at Jia Ero, and then asked Jia Dalong, "Your brother can be much more handsome than you, in the end, it is you who has gone to the seed, or your brother who has gone to the seed Jia Dalong smiled awkwardly and said, "I am like my father, he is like my mother." "Well, a man is lucky to be like his mother." "Okay, I won't bother you now." "Hey, Director Bai," Jia Dalong came to Bai Jieping and whispered, "Did Vice Principal Gao tell you about my brother?" "No, why?" "It's like this," Jia Dalong explained, "my brother has just been released from prison, can I trouble you to find a job for him? You have a lot of foreign-funded and joint venture companies in the development zone, can you introduce my brother to them? No wonder his brother looks like he has a murderous spirit, so he came back from prison?" Bai Jieping once again sized up Jia Ero and asked, "What kind of case did he commit? It's not bullying women, is it?" No, Jia Dalong explained, he was crippled by a mistake." When Bai Jieping heard this, she was in trouble. Murderers were definitely violent, who knew when, because of a little something small, he would commit pugilism again. If she introduced him to her friend, wouldn't she be pitting her friend to death? Jia Dalong could see that Bai Jieping was having a hard time, and immediately said, "Director Bai, I'm just mentioning it to you to see if there's any chance, if it's not convenient to ask, forget it." Bai Jieping said, "I will keep an eye on it, just not very sure, the general company will not use people with previous convictions." Even so, Jia Dalong thanked Bai Jieping non-stop. Bai Jieping was about to walk towards her sedan when a sedan stopped in front of her car. "Hey," Bai Jieping ran over while shouting, "Don't stop here, my car is coming out." There were 4 burly men sitting in the car. They were supposed to make a temporary stop, and one of them was going to go to the side store to buy something and leave. When he heard someone shouting, the one driving the car was preparing to slip forward a little bit, sitting in the passenger seat twisted his head and looked, whistled, and laughed with an evil face, "This chick is just right." Including the driver, the car are looking back at Bai Jieping, "I go, really pretty The driver understood and turned off the engine directly. Chapter 22, White Jieping being pestered by scoundrels. Jia Dalong saw that Bai Jieping's car was blocked, and immediately said to Wen Ruyu and Jia Eru, "You guys get in the car first, I'll go over and take a look." Although he was too timid to get into trouble, Bai Jieping was Gao Yida's wife, and if anything happened to her, Jia Dalong couldn't ignore it. Not to mention that it was broad daylight and on a pedestrian street. The other party blocked Bai Jieping's car and didn't go away. He was planning to go and reason with the other party, thinking that the other party wouldn't do anything to himself. Seeing this, Wen Ruyu did not get into the car, but looked at the situation from afar. Jia Eru, on the other hand, pulled open the car door and put the clothes that Wen Ruyu had bought for him into the car, while also looking at Bai Jieping from afar. Bai Jieping walked over and reached out to knock on the window glass. "Hey, how did you park the car?" The driver lowered the window glass and looked at her with a smile on his face. The man sitting in the passenger seat turned his face and looked at her with a bad smile and said, "Beautiful, something wrong?" Bai Jieping frowned. The other party's evil smile made her feel nauseous, and she asked without any good humor, "Can't you guys see that there are cars parked inside? How can my car come out if you guys are blocking it?" The man teased, "Beauty, today's weather is good, anyway, this car cannot come out, why don't we go to the cafe to sit?" "What's the point of sitting, you're sick." Bai Jieping said angrily, "Do not hurry to move the car away." At this time, the rear seat of the car window glass down, sitting in the back of the big man is also a face of evil smile. "Beauty so powerful, a glance can see that our boss is sick?" Another big man said, "Our boss is impotent, you want to cure him?" "Hooligans." Bai Jieping said with a red face, "If you don't move away, I will call the police." "Ha, call the police?" The man sitting on the passenger seat laughed. "If the police come to ask you, how did I go rogue, did I touch you above or below, how will you answer?" Bai Jieping was choked to say nothing. "What's wrong, Director Bai?" At this time Jia Dalong had come over. Bai Jieping said with a red face, "They are hooligans." "I go, for big men with a face of horizontal meat?" Jia Dalong took a look and shivered in fear. He never dreamed that there was such a group of goods sitting inside. Cold sweat broke out on his spine. Seeing Jia Dalong's face like a gentleman, and in the eyes of an obvious look of panic, the person in the passenger seat impatiently glared at Jia Dalong, scolded, "Mother's egg, get out of the way." If it is not Bai Jieping, even if it is Wen Ruyu, it is estimated that Jia Dalong would have dragged Wen Ruyu to turn around and leave. Can't mess with it, can't hide from it? But because it's Bai Jieping, Jia Dalong can't just leave it alone, and had to say with a hard head, "If you're so unreasonable, we'll just have to call the police." Bai Jieping said the police, they did not take it seriously. Jia Dalong also said to call the police, which instantly pissed them off. Apart from the driver, the other three people pushed the door to get out of the car at the same time. The person who got down from the passenger seat asked, "You called the police, right?" The big man who came down from the back seat near Jia Dalong's side reached out and snapped and slapped him in the face. "Aren't you going to call the police? Come on, give you a little material." Jia Dalong was already weak, did not expect the other side without warning as a slap. The whole person was slapped staggered a step. Bai Jieping reached out to help Jia Dalong, angrily rebuked, "What gives you the right to hit people?" Seeing this, Wen Ruyu in the distance immediately ran over. At the same time, she felt a gust of wind rise around her, and Jia Eru pounced like a whirlwind. That big man scornfully said, "Do I still need a reason to beat people? Idle is idle, Before he could finish his words, out of the corner of his eye, he already saw a man running towards him, and just as he turned around, Jia Eru's flying leg arrived, kicking him in the lower abdomen. It looked like he was at least 180 pounds. However, the whole person was kicked up in the air and flew directly backwards into the car, deflating the door into a large piece of the car in a raw manner. Bai Jieping was stunned all of a sudden, so powerful? When the driver saw this, he let out a yelp and immediately pushed the door out. Standing by the passenger door and another big man yelled in unison looking for death, one in front of the other around the car. Three people almost simultaneously towards Jia Eru pounced. The passers-by on the pedestrian street stopped and watched. They didn't see the moment Jia Eru kicked out, but saw the three big men rushing towards Jia Eru, thinking, "It's over, it's strange that this young man won't be killed alive." Seeing this, Jia Dalong subconsciously took a step backward. Bai Jieping, who had regained her senses, immediately rushed to the front of Jia Eru, pointing at the three big men and angrily rebuking, "What do you want?" Wen Ruyu also ran over at this time, reached out and grabbed Jia Eru's arm, ready to drag him behind her. The three big men are murderous, seemingly does not care about Bai Jieping and Wen Ruyu are women. There are God block kill God, Buddha block kill Buddha trend. Jia Arrow got rid of Wen Ruyu's hand, smoothly flicked by Jieping's shoulder, and the whole person had already risen up, kicking out scissor legs in the air. With a few snapping sounds, the necks of the three men all received a heavy kick. The two big men on the left and right were kicked to the ground. The boss, who came down from the passenger seat, directly fell on his back with a poof. After the two big men on the left and the right stabilized their feet, they roared in unison and swung their fists to pounce towards Jia Arrow again. "Be careful," Bai Jieping and Wen Ruyu shouted in unison. Snap! Ah! No one reacted to what was going on, only to see the two big men fall on their backs, the bones of their elbow joints pestled to the outside of their flesh. The blood and flesh were blurred, revealing a white bone, and it was a frightening and creepy sight to see. Chapter 23, Brother, Spare Your Life. It turned out that when the two big men's fists pounced on Jia Arrow's face, Jia Arrow did not avoid them and stretched out his hands to grab their fists, instantly shaking them in a jerky motion before violently pushing them outwards. Their elbow joints were not only dislocated, but bones pierced through the flesh and emerged, and after falling on their backs, they rolled on the ground in pain. That boss was just about to get up, when one of Jia Arrow's feet already stepped on his shoulder, and he lay down once again. Grass mud horse, ah! He had just cursed it offhandedly, but he felt a strange pain in his shoulder blade, as if it was going to break at any moment, and immediately screamed miserably. With a click, the distant onlookers heard the sound of a broken shoulder blade, and Bai Jieping and Wen Ruyu coincidentally winced. Jia Dalong was even more stunned, standing there not knowing what to do. "Whose mom are you grassing?" Jia Arrow asked. "I go, spare your life, spare your life." The bastard almost cried. "Still playing hooligan? No more, no more. Still hitting people? No more, 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 no more. Give me the old man, lie down." After saying that, Jia Arrow retracted his foot, the goods hurriedly rolled over on the ground. The other three men saw Jia Arrow's murderous gaze swept toward them, hurriedly and honestly down. Originally, he could have let one of the drivers drive the car forward or backward, but Jia Arrow walked over, reached out and lifted the bumper at the rear of the car, and moved the sedan directly away from the car, watching everyone's jaws drop. He walked to the front of the white. Jieping said, "You go." Bai Jieping woke up as if in a dream, quietly said to Wen Ruyu, "You also hurry to go." After saying this, she ran straight to the car and drove away. Only then did Jia Arrow turn to Jia Dalong and Wen Ruyu and said, "Let's go." "Oh." Wen Ruyu subconsciously glanced at Jia Dalong, who coyly and hurriedly walked towards the sedan. Wen Ruyu was ready to sit in the driver's seat, but Jia Dalong said, "I'll do it." He was a little uneasy about Wen Ruyu's driving skills. Only after their car started did a few big men get up from the ground, get into the car without saying a word, and leave in disgrace. Bai Jieping's car drove a long way before she came back to her senses, having just been really and completely shocked by Jia Arrow. She thought for a while, parked her car on the side of the road, picked up her cell phone and dialed Wen Ruyu's cell phone number. When Ruyu got on the car, also half a day did not come back to God. This time she really understand, Jia Dalong why so afraid of Jia Arrow with people hands. This kid does not do it already, a hands on people to death ah. In the future, we really can't let him get into trouble. Just then, Bai Jieping's phone call came. Jia. Dalong was startled and hurriedly asked, who's calling? He was both afraid that it was the other party calling and that it was the police. The problem was that he didn't think about it, whether it was the police or the other party. How could he know Wen Ruyu's phone number? "Hello, Director Bai, is something wrong?" Wen Ruyu asked. "Then what?" Bai Jieping said. "Didn't you guys just say that you want to find a job for old Jia's brother? Your school seems to be recruiting security guards, so why don't I talk to Lao Gao and ask Lao Jia's brother to be a security guard? Ask his brother if he agrees." Jia Dalong and Jia Arrow both heard Bai Jieping's words. Wen Ruyu looked back at Jia Arrow, and Jia Dalong also looked back. Jia Arrow didn't even think about it and said, "Yes." Wen Ruyu immediately said to Bai Jieping, "Then I'll trouble you, I'll wait for your news." He agreed? Bai Jieping asked. Aha. After hanging up the phone, Bai Jieping took a long breath, after which she smiled wryly, clicked on WeChat, and sent a message to Wen Ruyu. Arrow is really great. At the same time, also sent a face-covering expression. Wen Ruyu took a look and immediately understood what she meant. Her cheeks reddened and she clicked a blood-dripping dagger emoji back. Bai Jieping smiled heartily and drove straight towards home. In her mind, she kept reflecting the shadow of Jia Ero's clean and porous body. Bai Jieping is engaged in literature and art, and now as the director of the development zone, coupled with her husband, Gao Ida is a vice principal, often in and out of various social occasions. It can be said that what kind of men have seen. The only thing like Jia Ero so young, and is just out of prison, and out of the fierce, and the bones of the young man through the hall of righteousness, has not really seen. She also thought, if the Jia Ero introduced to the Violet KTV, perhaps more suitable. The problem is that there is a mixture of fish and dragons. Jia Ero, if you go to work there, may have to repeat the same mistake. She didn't want to harm Jia Ero. Bai Jieping's family lives in a villa in Haicheng University, and she told Gao Ida about this when she got home. He didn't do it for the sake of Jia Ero to stand up for his wife, not to mention the face of Jia Dalong, but he just thought that if he helped Jia Ero, he would be closer to Wen Ruyu. See, Jia Ero agreed to this security job. When Ruyu very happy, afraid of fear Jia Ero lazy, do not work, or even go to mix the society, that would be a problem. When she thought of Bai Jieping's joking words, when Ruyu's face couldn't help but redden. Jia Dalong also did not expect Bai Jieping to be so quick, and agreed to arrange a job for Jia Ero. Of course, he knows very well that this is not his own face, but Jia Ero's behavior, so that Bai Jieping had to return this love. He said to Jia Ero, "Our school security is good. There is no danger, and the treatment is not bad. Only in the future, it is best to protect yourself, do not meddle in other people's business, not to mention not to provoke right and wrong." Jia Ero said coldly, "I never provoke others." That is. Jia Dalong hemmed and hawed and laughed dryly twice. Chapter 24, Seeing Jia Dalong's nature. What Wen Ruyu was most displeased with was Jia Dalong's wimpy appearance, and even more so, she was displeased with Jia Ero's attitude towards Jia Dalong. She was about to say Jia Ero when the car was about to turn into the parking lot in front of the community, and on the parking lot in 2s and 3s, standing a few punks. Jia Dalong also saw, froze for a moment, thinking, these people are not here to find Ero, right? Jia Ero saw at a glance, parked on the side of the road, Tu Jun's luxury car. It seems that in this world, there are not many people who don't know how to die. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that. Jia Ero said coldly. Jia Dalong subconsciously stepped on the brake and looked back at Jia Ero. What's going on? Wen Ruyu turned around at this time and asked Jia Ero. You guys go back first. After saying that, Jia Ero pushed the door and got out of the car, directly heading towards Tu Jun's luxury car. Wen Ruyu only then saw Tu Jun's luxury car, subconsciously reached out and grabbed Jia Dalong's hand and said, "Bad, something is going to happen, hurry to call the police?" "Alright," Jia Dalong said, "Two Tiger's ability and you are not unseen, besides, I just gave Gao Ida called, he knows this Tu Jun. In that case, let's go there together." "See, the parking lot gangsters has run out to meet Jia Ero," Jia Dalong said. "Do not let them talk about it, we in the side of the obstruction." After saying that, he drove directly into the parking lot. When Wen Ruyu looked back, Jia Ero and Tu Jun had already disappeared. When Wen Ruyu looked at Jia Dalong again, Jia Dalong had already pushed the door to get out of the car, and before closing the door, he lowered his head and said to Wen Ruyu, "Let's go back." Wen Ruyu pushed the door to get off the car and asked, "Your heart is really big. There are so many of them, you actually do not worry about Ero?" Jia Dalong explained, "Is it useful to worry? If we follow them over, even if they break down and start fighting, aren't we adding to Ero's chaos? Then we'll call the police. As I said, I've already called Gao Ida. What if they're having a good talk and everything is fine, and the police fall out of the sky? Aren't we just looking for trouble? Besides, Ero just got out of jail. What if the police ask about the situation, see Ero fighting with someone again, and detain him again?" Wen Ruyu felt that what Jia Dalong said was also right, but she also felt that Jia Dalong seemed to be a bit wrong somewhere. "Dalong," Wen Ruyu asked with a puzzled look, "you don't mean it, do you?" Jia Dalong asked back, "What did I do on purpose? Are you just itching for them to fight? It goes without saying that if Ero wins, in case he loses, are you still itching for him to be killed or crippled, in which case the other side will have to pay the price and you will be considered completely relieved? I know my husband better than my wife." Jia Dalong really thought so. He didn't mean to harm Jia Ero, he just felt that he couldn't be his master. Since he couldn't control him, he might as well let him go. He was able to beat the other party into submission, and he had made a name for himself in Haicheng. With such a brother, he can also raise his own eyebrows in the future. If he was killed, it would be Tu Jun and the others who would pay for his life. If he is crippled, will Jia Ero still be able to stand in front of him in the future? When the time comes to send him back to the village, it is also considered to be peaceful. The leaders also have an explanation in front of whoever you want. But he could not say this to Ruyu, but asked a rhetorical question: if I really think so, why should I go to prison to get him back? He could have gone straight back to the village and had nothing to do with me. No, when Ruyu said, you go back, I have to go and see. After saying that, when Ruyu ran towards the road, Dalong had to follow her to the side of the road. The traffic cannot see their silhouettes, and there is no way to find. Go back, said Dalong, we will wait for him at home. When Ruyu blankly glanced at him, thinking, no wonder Era did not recognize this brother, he is not only timid, but also selfish. Has been high-minded and proud, pampered. When Ruyu has never missed anyone, did not expect the first time in the heart of a person who cannot rest assured, actually is Eru. This point, even she did not expect. Eru and Jun did not go far. When Eru walked towards Jun without saying a word, Jun pressed the car horn, and the 5 gangsters waiting in the parking lot immediately ran over. Moreover, in his car, there was also a burly man, Yong, the right-hand man under Big Head. Yong took a look at Eru and thought it was a bit strange. This wasn't the bumpkin that Jun had just mentioned, but more like the bodyguard of a certain tycoon. Eru was already very stout, and now that he had changed into a new outfit, he was very different from Jun's previous description. However, Yong was only stunned for a moment, and after confirming with Jun, he still felt that getting Eru killed was no more difficult than getting an ant killed. Get in the car, said Yong, let's have a good chat. When the 5 gangsters on the parking lot gathered around, Eru had already pulled open the car door and got into the back seat. Seeing this, the 5 people immediately got into a car behind them. After all, Eru was only one person. Yong is a well-known ruthless gangster. When he and Big Head out to mix, there was a person with a white shaking tablets, chasing and cutting another group of gangsters more than 10 people history. So they are not afraid of Eru will be in the car, the whole out of what moths. Jun stepped on the gas, and the car rushed into a small road on the opposite side with a whimper. By the time when Ruyu and Dalong came to the side of the road, they had already made several turns on the side road. Chapter 25, This Kid is Crazy. The car stopped at a rotten villa area and waited until the 5 punks behind them arrived, each waiting with a slice in their hands, before Jun pushed the door and got out of the car. Before Yong pushed the door to get out of the car, he glanced at Eru, who also pushed the door open. In the face of their own 5 or 6 people, and brothers with tablets in their hands, Eru even looked very calm, more or less out of Yong's expectations. In his opinion, Eru is a good embryo. In time, it is likely to become a social person. Unfortunately, he provoked Jun, and is too young, seems to have never suffered a loss. Today to teach a good lesson is a must. Yong was Big Head's right-hand man, and no longer needed to personally punch and kill everything like Warped Mouth. He stood by the car door and took out a cigarette and lit it up, as if what was about to happen had nothing to do with him. With Yong at his side, Jun was all guts. With his hands behind his back, he looked bullish as he looked around in the gate of the villa area before turning back in a very dashing manner and waving towards Eru. Quickly go over. A gangster tapped Eru's shoulder with the back of his slice. Eru looked back at the punk and turned towards Jun. The 5 punks quickly followed, but Yong, with a cigarette in his mouth, followed behind like he was taking a stroll. Look, what a beautiful villa area. Many people pursue poetry in faraway places without realizing that the most beautiful scenery in the world is actually around us. After Eru came around, Jun suddenly looked at those villas like a poet and let out a sigh of relief. Eru did not move to look at him. Jun then said, unfortunately, such a beautiful city villa actually rotten. And even more regrettable is that there is actually no surveillance here even on the way here. If a person was killed or buried alive here, no one would even know. Eru remained motionless as he watched him. Jun pointed to a round pit in front of him and said, it seems that this place was originally intended to be a fountain, and if a person was buried alive here, the feng shui would be quite good. Kid, what do you think? Not bad. Eru coldly responded. It looks like there's a pile of shit in that pit, right? Jun asked. Eru didn't even look at it and blurted out, yes. Jun said with a smile on his face, walk over and lie down like a dog. As long as you swallow that piece of shit, the matter between us will be cancelled. Otherwise, you have to thank me for finding a piece of feng shui land for you. Eru asked expressionlessly, you mean, lie down like a dog and swallow that piece of shit? Tu Jun nodded and said, "See, there is a gutter next to it? If you can't swallow it dry, you can still lie down in the ditch and drink water." Jia Era suddenly laughed. "This is a good idea." The five gangsters looked at each other in disbelief at the words. "Is this kid cerebral palsy?" Nia Yong sniffed and immediately spit out most of the smoke around his mouth. He was probably the only one present who could hear that Jia Era was about to make a move. Sure enough, Jia Era reached out and grabbed Tu Jun's collar with a backdrop. Tu Jun's body whooshed out and fell with a plop, right onto that pile of shit. I go, "This kid is crazy? There are so many of us present, and he actually dares to make a move? How dare he do that?" The five gangsters didn't even wait for Nia Yong to give orders, waving their white shaking tablets and directly hacking towards Jia Era's head. After Tu Jun had suffered a loss earlier, he had already called Big Head in the car and told him to bring people to the KTV at night to wait for Jia Eru. Later, after receiving Gao Ida's call and learning about Jia Dalong's address, he called Big Head again and told him to bring people over immediately. He really can't swallow this breath. Big Head was down in the county at the time and couldn't come back for a while, so he called Nia Yong and asked him to bring a few brothers over. Big Head is one of the four kings of Haicheng. Nia Yong's reputation is not bad, he is the most capable brothers under Big Head. In Haicheng, as long as one knows Big Head, there is no one who doesn't know Nia Yong. When he heard that the person who hit Tu Jun was just a country bumpkin, Nia Yong brought his five brothers with him and came over. Just saw Jia Eru was a bit surprised, did not expect to come here. Jia Eru actually dared to make the first move. Five brothers swarmed, the result of the screams was cut, not Jia Eru. In the melee, some of the five brothers stumbled, some rolled and crawled, and all of them were dropped into the pit by Jia Eru, accompanying Tu Jun to wail in pain. Awesome! Jia Eru's quick hands and feet were beyond Nia Yong's expectations, and he realized that he had met an expert. Nia Yong subconsciously prepared to reach towards his back waist, then he remembered that he left the house in a hurry, plus he heard that it was just a country bumpkin, so he forgot to bring that two-shot. He felt like he was no match, yet he couldn't leave his brother behind. Nia Yong hard-headedly charged upwards, at the same time yelling, both to give himself a strong, but also want to overwhelm Jia Eru from the momentum. The narrow road, hot blood is a kind of temperament, the expressionless face is even more. Compared to Nia Yong, who is like a tiger descending from the mountain, Jia Eru, who is calm and composed, is more like a cobra waiting to strike. Seemingly noiseless, but already makes Nia Yong feel dangerous and fearful. There was no turning back. With a miserable scream, Nia Yong, who pounced over, was directly thrown into the pit by Jia Eru, and he was the most seriously injured. Because he was the leader. Chapter 26, this was Gao Ida's idea. Jia Eru jumped into the pit and came to Tu Jun sighed, stepped on his face and said, "Such a beautiful place, no surveillance on the road. If a group of gangsters and people brought by a boss killed each other here, lost both and all died here, I'm afraid no one would suspect anything, right?" After saying that, he bowed down and picked up a handful of tablets from the ground, directly stabbing at Tu Jun's chest. Tu Jun was shocked. After so many years in the society, and opened a few years of KTV, it can be said to read countless people. As the saying goes, a dog that likes to bark doesn't bite, and a dog that bites doesn't bark. Don't look at some people fierce and vicious like, open the mouth to fight and kill, really if you let him hands to kill, the probability will hide to the side. Really dare to play life, dare to kill, on the contrary, those who seem to not say anything, once up on the dead hand. Jia Eru was like that. He did not hysterically yell and threaten, just two eyes full of murderous anger, directly with a machete stabbed to his heart. This fucking is the real ruthless brothers. Tu Jun cried out in fear, in fact, it is not that I want to come to you to find trouble, but entrusted Jia Eru's handpiece of tip has topped the position of Tu Jun's heart. Scared Tu Jun did not dare to move a bit. I was entrusted by someone? Jia Eru coldly said, fool me. Don't you just want to take revenge on me? I've already told you that I'll only give you one chance, there won't be a next time. No, Tu Jun explained, I was going to wait for you at the KTV, but your brother's leader called me and asked me to find someone to waste you, so I found someone to come over. Tu Jun also had no choice, he really hadn't seen such a ruthless person like Jia Eru, and had been scared out of his wits. To save his life, he suddenly thought of Gao Ida. People are like this, when they feel like they are going to die, they will not let go even if they grab a straw. My brother's leader? Jia Eru looked at him with a puzzled face. Yes, Tu Jun saw that he had already attracted Jia Eru's attention and hurriedly said, your brother is called Jia Dalong, and you are called Jia Arrow, right? You see, if someone hadn't asked me to find you, how would I know your brother's names? It is also impossible to know your brother's home address. Jia Arrow asked, what's his name and why did he ask you to find me? His name is Gao, he's the vice principal of your brother's school, he should be looking at your sister-in-law, right? Nia Yong was stunned, thinking, how did he bring Gao out? When he has something to do, he often seeks out Gaoida's help. Damn it, businessmen are businessmen, and profit is the only thing that matters. Once their own interests are jeopardized, they will sell out their own mother and father, not to mention their friends. When he heard that it was Gaoida and that he was the vice principal, Jia Arrow immediately thought of Bai Jieping. Gaoida's wife is so beautiful, how can she still have thoughts about one Ruyu? Jia Arrow said in a cold voice, do you think I'm really stupid? What does what's between us have to do with him? Tu Jun hurriedly explained, it should be your brother called him, let him step forward to beg me, but he told me to get you to death, of course, cannot get you dead. In that case, when your brother begged him again, he then stepped forward to find me to say. Jia Arrow asked in a confused manner, why would he do that, just want my brother to thank him? Of course not, Tu Jun said heartily, he is looking at your sister-in-law. Hope that I sell him a big favor, your brother and sister-in-law to thank him, he will not have the opportunity to take advantage of it? If this kind of thing wasn't true, Tu Jun would never be able to make it up. Jia Arrow actually did not intend to cancel Tu Jun's account. If he really wanted to cancel his account and remain unknown, then he would have to cancel the account of a bunch of punks. For one thing, Jia Arrow wasn't that hostile. Secondly, he also knows that if so many people cancel their accounts, the police are not vegetarians, and really believe that the two groups of people killed each other and all died here? He was just scaring Tu Jun, only too much like the real, Tu Jun was completely scared out of his wits. Tu Jun has a lot of money in his pocket, let him just be cancelled, feel too wronged. This is why those who wear shoes are always afraid of bare feet. Jia Arrow used the side of the slice and slapped Tu Jun's face, scaring him so much that Tu Jun had already peed. Jia Arrow quietly stared at Tu Jun for a while, as if hesitating to make a move. Tu Jun looked at Jia Arrow with a crying face, not daring to utter an atmosphere. Jia Arrow then looked at Nia Yong. Nia Yong said without moving, you're ruthless, but you have to figure out, here is whose territory. Two fists cannot beat four hands, the good man cannot stand more people, if you want to rely on single-handedly against us, and ultimately can only take their own humiliation. The corner of Jia Arrow's mouth slightly raised. Patted Nia Yong's face with a slice and said, the same words are the same for you, I'll give you a chance, the only one ever. If you think your forces are big, when we meet again, it is best that you have the ability to pin my account. Otherwise, you're worse off than anyone else. There was a dangling sound. After Jia Arrow threw the slice to the ground, he walked towards the outside without saying a word. For someone like Nia Yong, the way Jia Arrow completely disregarded him could be said to be harmless, but extremely insulting. In Haicheng, no one had dared to scorn him like Jia Arrow. This beam was knotted. Tu Jun, however, breathed a sigh of relief. After seeing Jia Arrow leave, he dared to get up from the ground and said to Nia Yong, brother, this is a big scandal today, hurry back and call Big Head. Otherwise, can you and I still have a foothold in Haicheng? Mr. Tu, Nia Yong painfully stood up and asked, this kid is the god of plague. How did you mess with him? Tu Jun sighed, get going. Don't wait for him to come back to his senses and turn back, we might really be all accounted for here. Chapter 27, Get the hell out of here. Jia Arrow out of the intersection, far from seeing one Ruyu, still standing diagonally across the cell door looking around, obviously waiting for themselves, but did not see Jia Dalong. His heart felt like he had overturned a bottle of 5 flavors. It seems that Jia Dalong has not changed at all, not only timid, but also selfish. On the contrary, Wan Ruyu was looking towards both sides of the road without stopping, but she didn't expect Jia Arrow to come from the front, and she didn't realize it until she was in front of her. Wan Ruyu subconsciously held his hand and asked with concern, are you okay? It had been many years since anyone had been like Wan Ruyu, caring for herself like a relative. Seeing Wan Ruyu's demeanor and expression, a warm current surged through Jia Arrow's heart. He tried his best to control his emotions, gently shook off Wan Ruyu's hand, and while walking towards the neighborhood, he said expressionlessly, it's fine. Only then did Wan Ruyu sigh with relief and follow up, saying, it seems that your brother's call was still right, he looked for the high vice principal, and the high vice principal looked for that Tu Jun. But why did he bring so many people? Is it to ask you to compensate for the money? How much do you want to compensate? Jia still said expressionlessly, I said, losing money is losing, I have not lost. When Ruyu glanced at him, thinking, what to pretend, did not lose you Jao? By the way, when Ruyu asked, how do you know Tu Jun, but also know that he is the boss of the Violet KTV? Jia coldly said, I saw the business card on his car. How are you sure it is his? Maybe it is someone else's. Jia asked rhetorically, if you give someone a business card, would you give more than 10 at once and with a plastic box? When Ruyu was speechless by his dislike. It turns out that Jia saw Tu Jun's business card in his car. Hey, can't you speak properly? When Ruyu was a little angry, thinking, I cared about you with all my heart, waiting for you here all the time, and then half a day, my good intentions were fed to the dogs? No. Jia coldly returned a sentence, accelerated speed, striding towards home. He was listening to Tu Jun's words and suspected that when Ruyu had cuckolded Dalong. Although what Tu Jun said was that Gao Ida had evil intentions towards Wen Ruyu, but whether they had a relationship or not, God knows. And in front of the provincial prison, Jia first saw Wen Ruyu, secretly for Dalong pinched a sweat, so beautiful on earth, he can keep it? Jia and Wen Ruyu back and forth to the home, is looking at the computer in the study of Dalong, saw the passing window of Jia and Wen Ruyu, immediately got up and opened the door. Seeing that Jia was unharmed, he smiled and said to Wen Ruyu, who entered the door after him, I told you that Era was fine. Honey, hurry up and cook, I'm hungry. Wen Ruyu angrily said, do a fart. Don't even eat at night, hungry. After saying that, she directly walked towards the bedroom. When she entered, she brought the door with a bang. Dalong was confused and lowered his voice to ask, Era, what's wrong with your sister-in-law? In Dalong's impression, no one Ruyu so many years, married for almost a year, never heard her say foul language, how to do a fart this kind of words, today will come out of her mouth. Jia asked in a cold voice, she is your wife, you ask me? After saying that, Jia also walked into the second bedroom, just did not close the door. Dalong froze for a moment and sighed, okay, I'll cook tonight. He walked over and opened the refrigerator to see that there was nothing in it, turned to the door of the second bedroom and said to Jia, you wait, I'll go out to buy food. Seeing that Jia didn't take care of himself, he reluctantly smiled and turned to leave. After hearing him walk away, Jia hesitated for a while, but still got up and came to the door of the master bedroom, knocked 3 times. After waiting for a while and not hearing any sound from inside, he reached out and twisted the handle, the door opened, only to see Wen Ruyu grimly sitting on the bed with her back to the door, looking at the external floor-to-ceiling window. Jia did not go in, just coldly said at the door, laundry and cooking is a woman's natural responsibility, you should not let your man down the kitchen. Wen Ruyu turned back to look at Jia expressionlessly. Jia continued, no matter what you want in the future, as long as you are not divorced, you can quarrel, you can make trouble, but you cannot threaten him by not cooking. Wen Ruyu quietly looked at Jia for a while, and suddenly got up from the bedside and walked towards the door without saying a word. Jia thought she was moved by her own words, but did not expect Wen Ruyu to walk to the door, reached out and slammed the door again. Jia's blood surged straight upwards. He remembered what happened between his adoptive mother and the village chief, and once again twisted the door handle to see Wen Ruyu standing motionless where she was when she closed the door before, coldly looking at herself. Jia sighed long and hard, and Wen Ruyu thought that he would leave in the midst of hopelessness, but he didn't expect Jia to suddenly rush in, grab Wen Ruyu's hair, and forcefully press it to the ground. With a plop, Wen Ruyu fell to the ground, her head was pressed to the floor by Jia. Wen Ruyu was confused. Since she was a child, when had she ever suffered such a big loss? Just when she instantly came back to her senses and was ready to struggle up and lash out, she only heard Jia's cold as iron voice ringing out once again, bitch, don't mess with me, or else, I'll let you die 100 times. After saying that, Jia let go of her hair and turned around without saying a word to return to the second bedroom. Wen Ruyu was instantly dumbfounded, thinking, he actually called me AB*TCH, why? Just because I cared for him? He really thought I was Pan Jinlian and he was Wu Song? Wen Ruyu angrily rushed directly into the second bedroom, loudly scolded, Jia, you give me a clear, why call me a bitch, I am stealing people, or go outside to sell. Jia crossed his eyebrows and said coldly, less in front of me to set up a house of cards, tomorrow I will give you the answer. Tomorrow? Wen Ruyu was confused, not knowing what Jia was talking about. What tomorrow not tomorrow, you must give me an explanation. Wen Ruyu said angrily, what have I done to you? Buy you good clothes, Let you live at home, give you to do good food, is a dog also no good and bad, right? You open your mouth to curse, hands on the fight, take me as what? If you don't make it clear today, get out of my house now. Chapter 28, Kneel and Apologize. Jia Ero said expressionlessly, I said, I will give you the answer tomorrow. What answer? Didn't you ask me why I called you a bitch? Jia Ero said, if I can prove that you are a bimbo, I'm afraid that it won't be me who gets out tomorrow, but you. When Ruyu looked at him and thought, he wants to prove that I am a whore, how can he prove it? I didn't steal, I didn't play around outside. He just met with Tu Jun and the others, how come he changed once he came back, and he still wants to prove that I am AB******, could it be that Tu Jun said something to him? The problem is that when Ruyu doesn't know Tu Jun at all, she really can't think of what Tu Jun would say to Jia Ero about himself. Well, when Ruyu was not afraid of the shadow slant, endured the anger and asked, if you cannot prove it tomorrow? Jia Ero said, I kneel down to apologize to you. This is what you said. Jia Dalong knows that what cannot be done, I do not say, what is said, must be done. Okay, tomorrow. When Ruyu was really curious, how did Jia Ero suddenly think of proving this? Is it because he thinks that I am good looking, and good looking women must be a redhead? Although this idea is too childish, but he can think this way, at least it shows one thing, that is, in his heart, he should be the most beautiful woman in this world, at least one of the most beautiful women. Thinking of this, when Ruyu actually felt a little bit smug. She had never done anything to apologize to Jia Dalong. Jia Ero would definitely not be able to find any evidence. She would like to see if Jia Ero would actually kneel in front of her at that time. And from another perspective, he didn't know where he came up with a strange thought. After calling himself a bimbo, he actually wanted to punish himself for Jia Dalong. This showed that in his heart, he still recognized Jia Dalong as his brother. When Ruyu turned to the kitchen and began to pan the rice to cook, Jia Dalong had never cooked before and didn't know how to cook, so all he bought were Brussels sprouts. When he opened the door and came in, he heard a noise in the kitchen and immediately probed to see Jia Ero in the second bedroom and found him lying on the bed just as he had left. After walking into the kitchen, he saw when Ruyu with her back to herself, busy on the stove, hurriedly went over to put down the Brussels sprouts, wrapped her arms around Wen Ruyu from behind, and kept rubbing her body against Wen Ruyu's body, and laughed into her ear, Wife, how did you just lose so much temper? When Ruyu didn't pay attention to him, and just focused on the work in her hands. I know wife knife mouth, bean curd heart, know that I will not cook, but also cannot bear to look at our brother and sister hungry. When Ruyu still didn't pay attention to him. Jia Dalong came to Jia Ero's door again and said, Ero, you first rest, rice will be ready in a while. Jia Ero turned his head to look at Jia Dalong, feeling that the top of his head has been green into a grassland. Poor people, there must be hateful things. Jia Ero secretly sighed. During the meal, Jia Dalong looked excited, and while eating his meal, he asked Jia Ero about what had just happened. Wen Ruyu also wanted to hear what had just happened, but did not move and kept her head down to eat. Jia Ero originally didn't want to take care of Jia Dalong, and just dimmed a nod perfunctorily. Jia Dalong did not seem to care, and finally asked, Tu Jun will not come back to you, right? Jia Ero again Jia Dalong nodded, that's good, it seems that Vice Principal Gao is still true to his word, tomorrow your sister-in-law and I will have to thank him. The corners of Jia Ero's mouth rose slightly, but in his heart he cursed, you son of a bitch, you don't even know that you've been green, but you still want to thank people? After dinner, Jia Dalong sat on the sofa and watched TV, when Ruyu was in the kitchen washing dishes and scrubbing bowls. Jia Ero got up and headed out. Ero, Jia Dalong asked, where to go? Casual walk. Oh, I'll give you the key. Jia Dalong said, back to the room from the nightstand, took out a key and handed it to Jia Ero. Jia Ero took the key and left without saying a word. As she passed by the kitchen window, when Ruyu glanced at him and saw him walking towards the outside of the neighborhood without looking away. After washing the pots and pans, when Ruyu took the mop and mopped the floor again. Jia Dalong said at this time, Wife, Gaoida is really helpful this time, in addition to my title, and now for Ero to smooth out the matter of Tu Jun, you see a few days, we invited him to the house to eat a meal, okay? When Ruyu also thought it was to invite Gaoida husband and wife, said, what to do at home? Go to the hotel. People Gaoida and by jipping off and eat outside, where to eat my cooking? Jia Dalong eyes flashed a hint of cunning color, said, I mean to invite Gaoida alone, and he ate every day in the hotel is also tired. We invited him to eat what? Might as well make a few of your specialty dishes at home, maybe he's still rare. When Ruyu didn't realize that Jia Dalong had already made a deal with Gao Ida. At least Jia Dalong knew that Gao Ida had bad intentions, but he accepted. When Ruyu didn't say anything else, she was so obsessed with how Jia Ero suddenly suspected her of being unfaithful to Jia Dalong that she didn't give much thought to what Jia Dalong had said, and didn't even notice that Gao Ida was the only one who invited her, not Bai Jieping. Seeing Wen Ruyu's acquiescence, Jia Dalong suddenly said, "See if you're free one day, go ask around the school to see if there's a suitable one, and help Ero rent a one-room apartment, right?" "Why? Didn't Bai Jieping say, let Gao Ida arrange Ero to be a security guard at the school? Rent him a house next to the school, and it's easy to get to and from work." When Ruyu said, "He just came, no relatives, people still think you are brothers. Longer time to say, just let him live outside is not appropriate." Jia Dalong was stunned. He thought when Ruyu couldn't wait, didn't think she actually disagreed? Chapter 29 The Second Tiger's Life. Jia Dalong blinked and looked at Wen Ruyu. When she came back in the afternoon, Wen Ruyu had been waiting outside for Jia Ero, and still had a bellyful of opinions about Jia Dalong, full of worry and attachment to Jia Ero. If it is said that a sister-in-law is a mother, coupled with the fact that she does not have any children, she treats Jia Ero as both a younger brother and half a son, which is reasonable. But then he followed Jia Ero back, and all of a sudden he changed his face. First, he refused to cook. When Jia Dalong went outside to buy food and came back, she was busy in the kitchen again. Now, listening to her, she seems to be prepared to keep Jia Ero at home for a long time. What is going on here? Is this a child's game, or is she flirting behind my back? Jia Dalong grew up as a coward and a nerd, but not stupid. In Jia Dalong's opinion, when Ruyu has been good to Jia Ero, normal. It's also normal to be bad all the time. But like now, all at once good, all at once bad, all at once bad, and all at once good, too abnormal. Before and after only half a day's time, when Ruyu's attitude towards Jia Ero has undergone several shocking reversals. Jia Ero's attitude towards Wen Ruyu was also quite strange. Jia Dalong was almost 100% certain that something must have happened between Wen Ruyu and Jia Ero. Or between them, some sort of tacit understanding had been reached. And this tacit understanding was definitely unfavorable, even damaging and sorry. If Wen Ruyu had a relationship with Gao Ida, he could still accept it. After all, he was profiting from it. Gao Ida is still young at his level of leadership and has a lot of room to rise in the future. Jia Dalong could also use Gao Ida's relationship with Wen Ruyu to gain even more benefits. If Wen Ruyu had a relationship with Jia Ero, he realized that he had nothing to gain except being a real turtle. On what basis? Jia Dalong hesitated, but still asked, "Ruyu, between this afternoon and Ero, did something happen? How do I feel that your attitude towards him is suddenly good and bad, several times of repetition, and the amplitude is particularly large, this with your usual performance, can be said to be very different Wen Ruyu didn't say anything. Jia Dalong was shocked in his heart and felt that he had judged correctly. Otherwise, Wen Ruyu either retorted or must have rolled her eyes at herself. "I'll go. It's less than a day, and they're on good terms, and they're fucking acting in front of me, treating me like a fool?" Jia Dalong looked at Wen Ruyu, who was not moving and mopping the floor, and his heart twinged. "I really fucking led the wolf into the house It is said that the dragon and tiger battles, I was born with the two tigers do not match His appearance had taken away the only love my parents had for me. And now he's even worse. He's just trying to put a green hat on my head." "Ruyu," Jia Dalong hinted, "you know what? The person Ero admired the most since he was a child was Wu Song." Wen Ruyu was stunned. Jia Dalong's words made her remember the joke Bai Jieping had made. Wen Ruyu turned around and asked with a frown, "Jia Dalong, what do you mean?" Jia Dalong smiled reluctantly, "Don't you want to know, why did he kill someone?" Wen Ruyu snorted coldly, not interested. After saying that, she turned around and continued to mop the floor. She knew that what Jia Dalong wanted to say, he would say even if she didn't listen. Jia Dalong sighed, "In fact, my mother is very pretty, at least compared to the 5 big and 3 thick rural women, with a slim figure, snow-white skin, and a clear face. It can be said that she is a village flower-like existence." Wen Ruyu believed that Jia Dalong did not tell lies. Because Jia Dalong looks very beautiful, it is estimated that like his mother. Jia Dalong went on to say, "When my father was the most cultured person in the village, unfortunately struggling for many years, not only did not get into the university, even the secondary school did not get in. Because every day at home to study, also cannot do farm work, completely rely on my grandparents to feed. My grandparents were not in good health, and they passed away not long afterward. My father's family was next to my mother's, and my mother liked my father, so my grandparents married my mother to my father. When my grandparents passed away, my parents, who were not very good at farming, put me in the care of a relative, and they went out to work. As a result, my father fell ill at the construction site, and they both returned to their hometown. I was only 6 years old that year, and they came back with Eru, who was less than a year old. When Ruyu stopped the work in her hands, and although she didn't turn around, she was obviously listening with her ears open. I heard my mom say, Eru's mother should be working as a lady, or was adopted, after giving birth to Eru did not want, so gave it to my mom. My mom did not want the village to know, so said it was picked up in the garbage cans. The village at that time also thought that the two tigers have any congenital disease, or disability. Otherwise, a white and fat boy, how can people throw away? Hearing this, when Ruyu felt that Eru's life was sad enough, she accelerated the speed of mopping the floor, then washed and dried the mop, turned on the TV, sat on the sofa and watched. Chapter 30 True or False? Although when Ruyu didn't say anything, Dalong knew that she had already taken a keen interest in Eru's past. Dalong followed over, sat next to Ruyu, and continued, "It should be said that the genes of Eru's parents are absolutely good. Eru grew up not only good-looking, but also particularly smart. Young ants and ants all grab to hold, see him white and chubby, they cannot wait to bite in his face. Because my mom didn't have milk, many young daughters-in-law in the village all rushed to feed him. Later on, his personality changed strangely, sometimes smart and wise, sometimes wild and rough. Now I think about it, I'm afraid it is also the reason for eating a lot of people's milk. Those young daughters-in-law have different temperaments, and more or less have some influence on him." When Ruyu had wanted to listen to Dalong speak slowly, but she didn't know when Eru would suddenly return. Dalong's eloquence is good, let him go on step by step. It is estimated that he can speak for 3 days and 3 nights. You might as well say, why did he kill someone? When Ruyu ventured out expressionlessly, Dalong nodded his head and said, "At that time, I had already gone to university. The specific thing, I also heard from the village later. Because I went to college, Eru was also studying in high school in the county, and usually didn't go home too much, only my mother was alone in the house. I don't know if it's true, or if it's just a deliberate attempt to stir up trouble, but they all said that the village chief at the time was having an affair with my mother. Eru originally only went back to the village on weekends, but that day, I don't know what happened, but he went back on Wednesday afternoon. When he got home, he saw the village chief at my house. When he came back, he might have met other people on the way and hinted at something to him, both explicitly and implicitly. After seeing the village chief, he went up and punched and kicked him, knocking him to the ground, not to mention running to the kitchen to pick up a kitchen knife, ready to chop off the village chief's thing. Speaking of this, Dalong's body subconsciously contracted, when Ruyu also hit a jolt. Later on, my mother desperately hugged him, and with a single stroke of his knife, he chopped off a third of the village chief's contraption and cut a long gash in his leg. The village chief endured the severe pain and ran wildly outside, not realizing that he fell again in the doorway, and to this day he is still half paralyzed. Because of this matter, Eru was sentenced to 6 years. When Ruyu asked, "Then between your mom and the village chief, in the end there is no such relationship?" Dalong shook his head and said, "Definitely not. My mom is a very womanly person, although beautiful, but clean. It is said that there are many right and wrongs in front of a widow's door, plus the village chief is usually afraid that he has offended many people, so there are people who secretly encourage Eru." When Ruyu nodded, not realizing that in this matter, Dalong had told a big lie. Dalong not only knew that his mother and the village chief had a relationship, but he had also witnessed his mother and the village chief doing that kind of thing together on more than one occasion. This also caused him a serious psychological shadow. He knew very well that his family was very poor, and every time the village chief came to the house, he would give his mother a card. By the time Dalong got into college, the village chief not only helped him get a poverty scholarship, but also gave him $10,000 for his first year's tuition and living expenses. And when he got the $10,000 from the village chief, Dalong's mind even had more selfish, mean and dirty thoughts. If my mom had a few more men, wouldn't I get more money? And after Eru got the news from Wu Jinawa's mouth, he rushed back from the county middle school. If it wasn't for his adoptive mother desperately trying to stop him, I'm afraid that the village head had already been cancelled by him. Because of this, in Dalong's subconscious mind, it is a sin for men and women to do that kind of thing, so every time he is with Ruyu, he is always out of his depth. Ruyu has always thought that it is his kidneys cannot, in fact, it is his psychological problems. Jia Dalong continued, because of my mom, Eru is especially sensitive to relationships between men and women, especially that kind of improper relationship. He was in jail at such a young age, and he has never seen any women. I know that you can be a good person, as a sister-in-law, it's right for you to care about him, but I'm afraid that he misunderstood you. You should see that he is willing to stand up for me even though he doesn't want to call me brother. Because of what happened to my mother, he is most averse to women cheating on their husbands, while at the same time not allowing anyone to call my mother names. The main reason why he came down so hard on the one upstairs was that the Taiyukai cursed my mother and I couldn't even stop her. Coupled with the fact that I was relatively weak as a child, Era once said that he would protect me like Wu Song protected his brother. No wonder. When Ruyu was about to open her mouth to say something when the phone suddenly rang. Chapter 31, It Doesn't Feel Right. The phone call was from Gaoida, saying that he and Tu Jun had agreed that we would all go to Violet KTV in the evening to sit down and talk about today's matter completely. Upon hearing this, Jia Dalong promised to arrive immediately. When Ruyu frowned, puzzled, asked, Eru just meant, is not it already settled? Jia Dalong said smartly, he hit someone else, although Vice Principal Gao stepped in, but I reckon that more or less he still has to make amends and pay some money. I will go over now, and I guess I will be back later in the evening. When Ruyu reminded, why don't we wait for Ero to come back? Jia Dalong said, Gao Vice Principal has arrived, people are helping us, we cannot leave him out to dry, right? When Ruyu thought for a while and said, okay, then I'll go with you. Jia Dalong understands that when Ruyu is afraid that she will suffer, the problem is that there is Gaoida, safety should not be a problem. However, he felt that when Ruyu was right, he took her with him, and the other side saw that they were a couple going to the appointment, and it should not be too much. As the saying goes, there is a way to steal. After all, Tu Jun was also a person with a face in society, it was always not so bad to lay hands on a woman. Okay, then let's go now, right? Wait for me to leave a note. When Ruyu left a note for Jia Ero before she and Jia Dalongpies drove towards Violet KTV. Wife, Jia Dalong while driving the car, said to Wen Ruyu, after all, Tu Jun they are mixed society, even if the high vice principal is present, later you have to pay attention to speak a little bit, do not show dissatisfaction and disdain for the social people. We are going to solve the problem for Ero, not to create new trouble for him. Wen Ruyu said, I understand. Under normal circumstances I am just accompanying you and not talking, and I will take the initiative to make amends and apologize to them if I need to. Jia Dalong smiled faintly, glanced at Wen Ruyu in a different way, and in a double entendre let out an exclamation, alas, for Era to have such a sister-in-law as you, it is truly a blessing that was cultivated in a previous life. Wen Ruyu frowned and said in a cold voice, don't be so gloomy with me. Don't talk to me about Wu Song, do you think I am Pan Jinlian? If I were Pan Jinlian, your head would have been green as a grassland, why would you need to wait for your brother who has been released from prison? Jia Dalong hurriedly explained, no, I know that you have high intelligence, can do, everything is for my good. I am worried that the motherly nature of your body will let the two tigers who do not understand women at all misunderstand, then the good will not be rewarded. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. That's good. They came to the door of the KTV and stopped the car, just walked into the hall. Tu Jun who was already sitting on the sofa in the hall immediately welcomed them. Aya, you two teachers are here? Why, your brother didn't come. Jia Dalong said with a smile on his face, good day, Mr. Tu, I'm really sorry about today. When Vice Principal Gao called, my brother had already left the house. Oh, it's okay, said Tu Jun, today is indeed a misunderstanding, had I known that you are colleagues and friends of Vice Principal Gao, how could I? Right, Vice Principal Gao is already in box 888, please follow me. Jia Dalong smiled and nodded, immediately following him towards the second floor. Wen Ruyu, however, frowned as she took Jia Dalong's hand and gently tugged on him. Jia Dalong slowed his pace and asked quietly, what's wrong? How come I didn't see Vice Principal Gao's car? Jia Dalong laughed, isn't this normal? He came to this kind of place, how could he drive his own car and wait for the Discipline Inspection Commission to find him? Wen Ruyu thought about it, but still felt that something was wrong. She said quietly, this Tu Jun seems to be a little too polite. That's for sure, Vice President Gao stepped in, unless he doesn't by face. I mean, since he does not hold a grudge at all, then still call us to talk about what, this matter just let it go not just? But Jia Dalong said, these people on the scene, is both the inside and the face. I estimate that although he bought the account of the high vice principal, but the heart more or less have a little diaphragm, we come to make amends, and then compensate a little money, everyone will also have face. Said, they have come to the 888 box. The door of the box stood too ferocious like a big man, arm tattoos. After seeing them come, one of the big men pushed open the door, and Tu Jun signaled them to go in first. Seeing this kind of stance, Dalong and Ruyu both coincidentally winced. However, they had already reached the door, and thinking that Gao Ida was still inside, Dalong could only hold Ruyu's hand and walked in. But when he went in, where was Gao Ida's shadow? It turns out that in the afternoon, Tu Jun took Nieyong and his brothers, very wretchedly ran back to the KTV, after the matter called to tell the big head. Big head was on his way back to Haicheng from the county, when he heard that his brothers had suffered a big loss. He immediately rushed to the KTV. Tu Jun and Nieyong said about the afternoon, Big Head saw the brothers in Tu Jun one by one miserable appearance, did not storm, but said expressionlessly, a country bumpkin will make you into this way? Directly cancel the account, otherwise, I Big Head still have the face to mix in Haicheng? He took out his cell phone and made a few phone calls, at once called more than 60 brothers, respectively arranged in the opposite side and the left and right 3 boxes, and then asked Tu Jun to call Jia Ero about over. Tu Jun does not have Jia Ero's contact information, Jia Ero does not have a cell phone, he thought of Gao Ida. Tu Jun dialed Gao Ida's cell phone and said bluntly that he was going to give Jia Ero a chance at night, but was worried that he wouldn't give in and let Gao Ida make a phone call to Jia Dalong, saying that he would come over at night to settle the conflict between the two sides. Gao Ida froze for a moment. Tu Jun knew what he was worried about, immediately told him that his side will pay attention to the proportion, and will give Gao Ida the space to operate as a good person, and finally even singled out, you are not just looking at the teacher one? I'll take care of Jia Ero, and you'll have one less obstacle to deal with. Gao Ida thought about it. He repeatedly hinted at Jia Dalong. Jia Dalong is not only selfish, but also a wimp. If Tu Jun will be Jia Ero, he will not have any worries. Only then did Gao Ida make that call to Jia Dalong. Chapter 32, The Exquisite Egoist. Jia Dalong and Ruyu just walked into the box, and Tu Jun immediately followed them in and closed the door. They took a look. The box was in a mess, and on the table in one of the rooms inside, even the plates and bowls from the meal they had just finished were not cleaned up. Outside of a room on the sofa, at least sitting more than 10 gangsters, each gangster side has a princess accompanied. Big Head was sitting in the center of the couch, holding 2 women to his left and right. The one on his left, who looked like a princess, was very young and quite good looking. The woman on the right, obviously much more mature, a demonic temperament, wearing gold and silver, more like a too young girl who hangs out in society. This room of men and women, there is no shadow of Gao Ida. Jia Dalong panicked in his heart and turned back to ask Tu Jun, Boss Tu, where is Principal Gao? Tu Jun is worthy of being an old man, and did not immediately change his face, still full of smiles. Oh, he is on the road to this rush, will be here soon, you first go over to sit for a while. Jia Dalong heart more panicked, forehead cold sweat are out, Tu boss, or we wait outside it. At this time, Big Head came out with a sentence, why don't you go to heaven? Go, kneel on the side. When Jia Dalong heard this, he shivered. When Ruyu suddenly asked, what are you doing? The woman in gold and silver sitting on Big Head's right side, chided, are you damn deaf? Big Head told you to kneel to the side. When Ruyu tugged on Jia Dalong's hand, let's go. Tu Jun said with a gloomy face, I'm afraid you can't get out. When Ruyu immediately pulled out a cell phone ready to call the police, the woman has walked to the front of Ruyu, according to Ruyu's abdomen is a foot, looking for death. When Ruyu did not pay attention, was her kicked back a few steps, thud, people fall at the same time, head hit the wall, the phone also out of hand. The woman picked up the cell phone, slapped Ruyu's face with it, and said, honestly kneel on the side, otherwise, I'll let these brothers take your turn. Jia Dalong sniffed, hurriedly came over and hugged Ruyu, and said to the woman with a horrified face, we kneel. The woman asked Jia Dalong again, there is a landline phone at home, right? Yes, there is. Call immediately and call your brother. He's not at home, he's gone out after dinner. Okay, a quarter of an hour, call home, until you call your brother over. Jia Dalong helped Ruyu, walked to the doorway near the second room, and honestly knelt there with Ruyu. Where had Ruyu been so strangely humiliated? With her temperament, even if she didn't hesitate to die, she would still fight to the death. But she was frightened by that woman's words. Death wasn't scary, but if she were to be ganged up on by this group of assholes, it would be worse than death. The woman looked at Jia Dalong and Wen Ruyu and asked to Jun, "Jun, you're not mistaken, are you? With such a goon, how could he have such a brother?" Tu Jun reached out and touched her face. "Do you think that Nia Yong and his brother, they all flattened themselves?" The woman smiled slightly, even reached out to give Tu Jun a seabed. "I see that you are also not lightly injured. Would have liked to play a program with you in the evening. It seems that it is not possible? You little slut." Tu Jun pinched a hand in her chest. Wait for his brother to get done before. What, no show at Big Head's place today? The woman smiled slightly. Can't you see he's sitting next to a more tender one? Big Head laughed. Shao Jia, what's the hurry? Just seeing you with Yi Shao aroused my interest. After I'll take care of that countryside brat, I'll fucking take care of you. It turned out that this woman's name was Shao Jia, and when Ruyu had already carved her name into her bones. Shao Jia threw a head of hair, a face of disobedience. Who to handle Hua? After finishing, if you have the ability, don't help the wall. Ha ha ha. Tu Jun took the cell phone from Shao Jia's hand, walked to the front of Jia Dalong and Wen Ruyu, and handed the cell phone to Jia Dalong. Make a phone call to see if your brother is home yet? Jia Dalong stretched out his hands trembling, took the cell phone from Tu Jun, and called 3 times in a row. No one answered the phone at home. My brother just went out. I'm afraid he didn't come back so early. Okay, said Tu Jun, then you will kneel until your brother comes over. 2. Boss 2, so what, Vice Principal Gao? Did not wait for him to finish. Tu Jun backhand is a slap. Jia Dalong's glasses are fanned away. Now still thinking about your high vice principal? Even if the leaders of the province and the city come, they can't save you. Jia Dalong was confused by his slap, and only begged Jia Era to hurry back to answer the phone. At this moment, he wasn't thinking about letting Jia Era come over to rescue them or take revenge. Rather, he was thinking that there was a head for the grievances and a head for the debts. As long as Jia Era came, they would always release themselves and Wen Ruyu, right? If they wanted to kill or die, they would only look for Jia Eru. He even thought that as long as these people let him go, even if they insulted Wen Ruyu, it would be fine. This thought had arisen in his mind from the moment Shao Jia uttered those words. He didn't want to lose his life here. He was still thinking of becoming an associate professor, a vice principal, a principal earlier, and in the end, he might be spotted by any leader to enter the career path, and then majestically return to Jejia village to honor his ancestors. Chapter 33. Could that be the biological mother? When Ruyu was different, she was in a deep conflict, both wishing for Jia Eru to come and worrying that he would be in danger if he did. Her only hope was that after Jia Eru saw the note and realized that she and Jia Dalong hadn't returned for half a day, she would just call the police directly. However, at this moment, Jia Eru unexpectedly got involved with Chen Lingan. Originally, Jia Eru was going to go to Violet KTV, but in the Rotten Villa area, he once again violently beat up Tu Jun and the others, and also made Tu Jun betray even Gao Ida, so he guessed that Tu Jun was completely convinced, and there was no need for him to go any further. What he had to consider now was how he should deal with Gao Ida. Directly rushing to Gao Ida's office to pick his words apart, and then violently beating him up so that he would never dare to think ill of Wen Ruyu again, was one way. In Jia Era's mind, Bai Jieping's exquisite figure and noble and elegant outstanding demeanor suddenly appeared. He thought that if he could use his own way to return the favor, and put a green hat on Gao Ida, it would not only be another way, but it should be the best way. Wen Ruyu gave Jia Eru unlimited reverie. But this reverie should never come true because of Jia Dalong. And Wen Ruyu in the same beauty to the extreme, the age is about the same Bai Jieping, is undoubtedly the best substitute. Thinking of this, Jia Eru felt an unprecedented ease and refreshment. Strolling on the street at the beginning of the lights, he suddenly felt that the night scenery of the Jiangnan city of Haicheng was too beautiful. If he could live in this city for the rest of his life, this life could be said to have no regrets. Not to mention that he was still inextricably linked to this city. His biological parents were both in this city, and they should be very rich. His adoptive mother had told him that his mother was a very beautiful noblewoman, and that he was not picked up by his adoptive mother from the side of a trash can, but was given to his adoptive mother by his mother herself. At that time, she also gave his foster mother $20,000, but there was a condition, that is, holding the child to leave, and can never come back to Haicheng. Foster mother held him left and then left a heart, soon turned back to follow his mother. The result sought his mother on a red car. The foster mother wrote down the license plate number, Hi A88888. To have this license plate, even if it is not the richest man in Haichang, I am afraid it is one of the richest, right? Foster parents were prepared to use the $20,000 in Jia-Ero live well even if, live bad. The foster mother also hoped that in the future he will be able to find their biological parents. The money was used to treat his father's illness. When the money ran out, the foster father went away. After Jia-Ero was sentenced to prison, his foster mother told him about the license plate because she was worried that he wouldn't be able to serve his sentence properly in prison, and because she was worried that he would lose confidence in the future after he was released from prison. At the same time, she told him that if he was released from prison in the future, he could try to find his biological parents. Who knows, later Jia village earthquake, adoptive mother died in a mudslide. About the birth parents more news, Jia-Ero has no way to know. At this time, a red sports car, from the side of Jia-Ero wind speed like a brush past. Jia-Ero carelessly glanced at the license plate, his heart was shocked. Damn, CA88888? Jia-Ero's mind fell into a brief blank, then suddenly spread his legs and chased after it. Not far ahead is an intersection, the yellow light is flashing. Because of this, the sports car is blasting, the throttle rushed past. When Jia-Ero chased to the intersection, left and right to the relative traffic, has blocked him. And the red sports car has gradually disappeared at the end of the road. Disappointed, Jia-Ero and a little puzzled. The car is a red sports car, the license plate is also CA88888. The problem is that the past 24 years, how this sports car is still brand new? Even if the owner of the car and then cherish, it is not possible to cherish into this way, right? Also, if the driving is their own mother, 24 years have passed, more than 50 years old mother driving will be so fierce? The adoptive mother said it, when she first looked at her own mother she was in her early 30s. Anyway, this at least gives Jia-Ero a hope. Before this, Jia-Ero has always felt that the foster mother is a rural person, and older, about their own mother, and this car thing, perhaps the memory is not accurate. But the fact is, this car just appeared in front of himself. Originally in Haicheng only wanted to stand up for Jia Dalong, but now it seems there is another more important thing to do. Moreover, this car was so conspicuous, perhaps Jia Dalong or Wen Ruyu both knew the owner's information. Thinking of this, Jia-Ero turned around and prepared to walk back, when he suddenly heard the sound of a woman shouting for help coming from an alley by the intersection. Jia-Ero ran over quickly, and in the dimness, saw the backs of 3 men, facing a woman. The woman was lying on the ground, being held down by 2 of them by her arms, and at the same time, her mouth was covered. The man in the center was undoing his belt. Holy shit! Violence in broad daylight, where is the law? Oh, baby, it's wild, it's hot, I like it. The guy unbuckled his belt and was about to get on his back when he suddenly felt his ass being slammed by something, and his whole body rose up in the air and flew forward like a toad. Since he was groveling in preparation for getting down, he landed face first on the ground when he fell. With a bark, it was a terrible fall, half of his face rubbing on the ground. After a brief moment of numbness, the broken tailbone and the fiery sting of his cheeks caused the bastard to ache. His 2 companions froze at once. Damn it, wasn't he going to pounce to do his job? How did he pounce so far away all of a sudden? By the time they turned back again, Jia-Ero was already standing in front of them without a word. Ah! Without waiting for them to react, Jia-Ero flew up with 2 kicks, successively kicking these 2 goods away as well. Looking down, the one lying on the ground was actually Chen Lingan, and was covered in the smell of alcohol. Auntie's towel was pulled down on the side of the leg, and the dim light showed dark brown. Chen Lingan just struggled desperately, already desperate, suddenly felt the whole body a loose, just held down their own people no longer. The person who had just unbuckled his belt and was grinning fiercely suddenly turned into Jia-Ero. Chen Lingan was a little confused, and asked offhandedly, "It's you?" Chapter 34, Chen Lingan Despair. The 3 scumbags endured the severe pain and climbed up, and before they could react, Jia-Ero appeared in front of them again like a ghost, rewarding each of them with a kick and sending them flying once again. Help! Chen Lingan obviously hadn't sobered up yet, lying on the ground with her legs clamped together, shouting breathlessly. Seeing her clothes messed up like that, her shorts were stripped down to her knees, Jia-Ero immediately turned back and picked her up after moving her shorts up. By this time, the 3 scumbags had already scurried away. Jia-Ero hesitated for a moment, seeing Chen Lingan in this state. He still intended to let go of those 3 scums and send Chen Lingan home first. At this time, Chen Lingan suddenly stretched out a hand, embraced Jia-Ero's neck and said, "Oh, I remember, just now a few hooligans wanted to bully me, it was you who saved me." Jia did not answer, directly carry her back to the neighborhood. It is this delay, Jia and driving a car to the KTV Jia Dalong, when Ruyu rubbed shoulders. Jia found the key from Chen Lingan, opened the door and put her down, and then realized that his arms were covered in blood. Seeing this, Chen Lingan hurriedly clamped her legs together and screamed in horror, "OMG, you made me bleed? I was fucking broken by you? Oh." Jia was stunned and thought, hanging out with scum every day and still a virgin? Chen Lingan cried while pounding Jia's chest with her small pink fists, and her whole body staggered unsteadily. Jia had to pick her up again and walk to the bathroom, first let her face the toilet squatting, and then put his hand into her throat. Chen Lingan throat muttered, the whole body towards the front of a flop clatter vomit ceaselessly. She just stopped, Jia put his hand in again, Chen Lingan vomited again, tears and snot flowed out, and her legs went limp. If Jia hadn't pressed her back, she would have sat on the floor. Jia realized that the food she vomited wasn't much, but it reeked of alcohol. Needless to say, she must have been drinking without food. Chen Lingan, who had vomited for half a day, appeared to be slowly coming to her senses. She looked down and saw that her legs and white shorts were all stained red with blood. Jia, you even dared to force me, I'll fight you. The person just wanted to stand up, but suddenly flung himself at the toilet and dry heaved again. Jia expressionlessly waited for her to finish vomiting, and when he saw her sitting on her but on the floor, he immediately unscrewed the switch of the shower, and after adjusting the water temperature, he directly picked Chen Lingan up and flushed the shower against the top of Chen Lingan's head. Chen Lingan had a jolt, seemed to be much more awake than just now, and suddenly saw Jia reach out and take off her clothes. Chen Lingan had goosebumps all over her body, and asked with a horrified expression, What are you doing?" Then, Chen Lingan was stripped naked by Jia. Chen Lingan cried, You murderer, rascal, have the guts to kill me, or else, I will make sure you sit through the bottom of the jail. Jia didn't care about her at all, holding her body with one hand, and rubbing her body with one hand along with the water droplets from the shower. Jia wanted to act like a gentleman and sit still, but Chen Lingan's skin was too white, too smooth, and her figure was slim to the extreme, without a piece of flab on her entire body. Jia's body, long ago, had a strong change. However, he never had any evil thoughts, he just wanted to help Chen Lingan wash her body clean. Of course, the idea of snatching grass and hunting rabbits was still there. Chen Lingan was indeed washed clean, but her entire body was also touched by Jia. Afterward, Jia used a dry bath towel to wipe Chen Lingan's entire body dry, then carried her to the bedroom and put her on the bed. Chen Lingan completely collapsed. She knew that a storm of destruction was coming. She wanted to scream for help, and even wanted to suddenly rush to the window and jump, but didn't dare. Jia was too close, and once he reached out, he could choke her so much that she couldn't move. Is there any more anti-towel? Jia asked. Chen Lingan looked at Jia with despair and helplessness, and tearfully pleaded, Yes, in the nightstand. Oh, Arrow, you can't get it when you come on your body, why don't you wait until I'm clean, then I'll give it to you. Woo. Jia asked rhetorically, You're completely awake now? Chen Lingan nodded and shook her head again. She didn't know what Jia meant, much less how to answer in her favor. Jia continued, Then you can pad yourself later. If you are not feeling well, you can go downstairs and call me, I will send you to the hospital. After saying that, Jia was soaked to the skin and turned to leave. Chen Lingan was confused at once, how many meanings, he? Chen Lingan contracted her body and felt it for a moment, which made her realize that her body had not been violated. Then recalled what had just happened, and only then did she understand that people Jia had saved herself. If it wasn't for him, his own innocence would have been over. But the problem was that Jia's hand had just touched all over her body. After hearing the sound of the door closing from the living room, Chen Lingan suddenly lost control of her emotions. She picked up a pillow and slammed it towards the door. You bastard! Who let you take a bath for me? I'll call the police now. Emma. Seeing that her period had flowed onto the bed, she hurriedly jumped up, patted her anti-towel and then immediately sat there in a daze. In her mind was always Jia's unmoving expression, and the words he said when he left were always echoing in her ears. If you're not feeling well, you can go downstairs and call me, and I'll send you to the hospital. His face, indescribably cold. His voice, however, just at that moment, seemed so gentle. Thinking again of the scene when she and the brothers of the warped mouth were beaten up, she really couldn't figure out what kind of a person Jia was. How could there be such a big difference in the way he treated himself successively? Humph, Chen Lingan muttered, insulting me like a dog during the day, and then trying to lure me into a trap at night? No way. When she thought of Jia Era using the shower in his hands to rinse her place that should never be shown to others, especially not to men, she was furious and angry. Chen Lingan, anxious and angry, annoyed and ashamed, all of a sudden jumped on the pillow, desperately with a small pink fist smashed the pillow crying, Jia Era, you bastard, sis was killed by you, will not let you go as a ghost. Woo. Chen Lingan's bawling, rather than venting her anger, it was more of a grievance. If Jia Era was a bad guy, Chen Lingan wouldn't even think about it, picking up her cell phone and calling the police. If Jia Era was a good person, in the case of not bullying himself, and touched himself all over, the big deal is to marry him. The question was whether Jia Era was a good person or not. Even if he was a good man, he was still a released labor reformer. Even if you can completely ignore the existence of the father, ignoring the disdain and even disgust of friends and relatives, after the birth of a child, how to do? Can't join the army, can't go into politics, can't take the civil service examination. Jia Era cannot think of a little sister's thoughts, actually will be so complicated. It was his nature as a man to help out when he saw injustice. Of course, he also wanted to leave a good impression on Chen Lingan. After all, Chen Lingan is also considered a rare beauty embryo. Regardless of whether or not there were any unintentional thoughts, being able to make a little beauty grateful for the rest of her life was a very happy thing for any man. When he returned home and was about to take a shower, he saw the note that Wen Ruyu had left on the table. Chapter 35, The Undefeatable Jia Era. Jia Era looked up at the electronic clock on the wall. It was almost 11 o'clock and the time left on the note was 7:20. Jia Era realized that something had happened and immediately rushed to the KTV. Jia Era had just left not long ago, and under the compulsion of Big Head, when Ruyu dialed the home phone again. If Jia Era answered it, she would defiantly let Jia Era call the police. But the phone rang for half a day, but no one answered. When Ruyu was a bit desperate, she was worried that Jia Era would just come to the KTV after seeing the note. Only she thought too much, even if Jia Era received her call, he would not call the police. Jia Era knows that for people in society, they must be solved in a social way. Big Head had been sitting on the sofa, singing left and right. Jun seems to be a bit impatient, and just then Gaoida calls and asks how things are going over here. Jun tells him that Jia Era hasn't arrived and asks him to wait. Gaoida is also a little impatient. He kept fiddling with the cell phone when Ruyu's photo, constantly using his fingers to scratch the photo of Wen Ruyu's clothes. He even imagined that Wen Ruyu was chanting with a high and low voice. Not a moment later, the door of the KTV box pushed open. Jia Era walked in. Jia Dalong saw the situation, not to give Jia Era warning, instead, kneeling on the ground, loudly reminded the Big Head and Jun, my brother is coming, my brother is coming. As if as long as Jia Era came, Big Head and the others would let him go. And it was obvious that he didn't even think that Jia Era could deal with these people, otherwise, he would have stood up long ago. Quickly walk. Instead, it was Wen Ruyu who stood up from the ground and ran towards Jia Era despite everything. She didn't expect Jia Era to be able to beat these people, that's why she was worried about Jia Era. Xiao Jie, who was singing, kicked Wen Ruyu from the side, and she almost flew to the side. When Jia Era was about to rush over, one of the gangsters directly pushed Wen Ruyu's head with 2 rounds. The other gangster, at the same time, pulled out 2 rounds and put them against Jia Dalong's head. Jia Dalong was pissed. He did not expect these people still have this kind of guy, shouted, my brother is not here? The implication is that there is nothing for me to do now. Jia Era also did not expect that they still have this kind of guy, especially when Ruyu and Jia Dalong's brains are on top. He did not dare to move. Nia Yong at this time also took a 2 round, walked over to Jia Era's head, coldly laughed, kid, you are not quite able to fight? I seem to remember that you said you would only give me 1 chance, unless you cancel your account, otherwise, I am worse than anyone? After saying that, with the guy but directly smashed to Jia Era's head. Jia Era was still thinking about going to grab the guy in Nia Yong's hand, but when he saw Wen Ruyu lying on the ground, who was hit by 2 rounds on her head, he hesitated for a moment. At this time from the door into dozens of gangsters, the whole box cannot stand. Nia Yong pointed at Jia Era with 2 rounds, without saying, swarmed up, punched and kicked, and beat Jia Era to the ground with a swollen face. The music stopped. The gangsters opened a path between Big Head and Jia Era. Before Big Head could come over, Nia Yong used his dick to rattle Jia Era's head. Kid, do you want to serve? Jia opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. There's always a debt, let my brother and sister-in-law go. Yong laughed coldly, this time still think of brotherly love? Think about yourself first, can you still get out alive tonight? Jia coldly looked at Yong, you are older than me, I call you a big brother, originally thought you were a man, how can only rely on the number of people off? If you want me to serve can, either one-on-one, or let my brother and sister-in-law go, I pick a group of you. Although Jia nose was bruised and swollen, and his face was covered in blood, his eyes still made Yong shudder. Yong is also a fighter, absolutely ruthless, at this time he can feel that Jia was even more ruthless than him. When the other gangsters heard that, they really beat the dead and can't beat their mouths, then they beat them up again. Only when they saw Big Head walking over did they stop. Big Head squatted down, looked at the already beaten face of Jia, said expressionlessly, looks like you are really able to fight, but now this society can fight on the line? You have to rely on wisdom, power, and wealth. Little brother, you are still too young. Jun came over at this time, according to Jia back kicked a few feet, kid, got it, you afternoon's ruthlessness? Jia said, to boss, you a businessman, stirring up social things to do, this time also out of the head, you are in the death. I go. Have seen the hard mouth, have not seen the mouth so hard, were beaten on the ground cannot move, but also fucking threaten people? Those punks are again a beating. At this time, when Ruyu lying on the ground crying, please, do not fight, and then fight will be killed. Woo. Dalong did not know whether it was scared silly, or want to try to clear himself, kneeling there without saying a word. Big Head signaled his brothers to stop, then asked, still breathing? I'm afraid that even the most ruthless person would play dead at this time. In the case of people like Big Head and Yong, when they were outnumbered and beaten to the ground, they would likewise play dead. Unexpectedly, Jia replied, in. Although the strength to speak is almost gone, but the tone is still firm, Big Head and Yong coincidentally stunned, this kid is ruthless or stupid ah? Big Head pondered for a while and asked, speak up, you injured my brother, how do I settle this account? Jia asked in return, can I make a phone call? Chapter 36, They Are the Ones You Called. The people present were stunned at the same time, thinking that this was what a true socialite should say. If one would only go into the world single-handedly by oneself, in the eyes of a socialite it was just a silly boy who was not afraid of death. The truly powerful ones not only could fight on their own, but also had someone behind them. As soon as he said he was going to call, the first one to get nervous was Jun. After all, Jia reported his name at the beginning, he always felt that someone was behind it. What Jun was afraid of was that the person behind Jia, Big Head, couldn't deal with. There was a catchphrase in Haiqing society called the 3 old men and 4 young men, also called the 3 old men and 4 heavenly kings, and Big Head was one of the 4 heavenly kings. If Jia's back is one of the other 3 heavenly kings, then not afraid, anyway, we have a fight, and we'll also buy each other. The fear was that Jia was one of the 3 elders. Hearing that Jia was going to make a call, Big Head nodded. Jia asked, can I ask my brother to pass the phone over? Big Head winked at Yong, who handed Jia his own cell phone, kid, you better call over the most powerful person you know in Haicheng, otherwise, you're just making a fool of yourself. Jia took the cell phone and dialed Yuan Jiha's number. Yuan Jiha was Jia's cellmate, released 2 years ago. He is 2 years older than Jia, but in prison, it was Jia who covered him. When he was released from prison, he said that his boss was Su Chang, one of the 3 oldest people in Haicheng, Uncle Sang's people, very powerful in Haicheng. In the future, if Jia is released from prison, if there is anything in Haicheng, give him a phone call, even if it is a matter of canceling a person's account, he can make things right. Jia generally do not like to owe people, this time it is entirely because of Jia Dalong and Wen Ruyu to make this call. If it wasn't for them, Jia would have fought for his life. Yuan Jiha was playing billiards with his buddies in Billiard City, and when he saw the unfamiliar phone call, he opened his mouth and asked, who is it? Brother Hua, this is Eru. Big Head and Yong heard, Haicheng does not have the name of Brother Hua. Brother, it's you. Have you come to Haicheng? Where are you? I'll pick you up. I'm at the Violet KTV. I'm being counted. Come here quickly. Okay, I'll be right there. Big Head and Yong once again looked at each other in wonder, thinking, although they hadn't heard of the other parties. Name, the other party was quite cool, and said to come over after answering the phone. As long as the people of Haichun, especially those in society, who doesn't know that Violet KTV is covered by Big Head? Knowing that it was his own venue, without saying anything, he immediately came over. What kind of god is this brother Hao? Yuan Jiha put down the phone, immediately said to Su Chang, Brother Chang, let's hurry to go to the Violet. Remember the arrow brother I told you about? He is now being set up at Violet, let's hurry over. Su Chang threw the pool cue, go. Yuan Jiha reminded a sentence, my two tiger brother is quite capable of fighting, can set him up, the other side of the people will not be less, we only have 5 brothers, or call more people? It's all right, Su Chang said. Su Chang said, that side to watch the scene of the war mouth, and I am buddies, there will be no problem. Billiard City is not far from Violet, they came to the box in a while, we look, both sides are blinded. Big Head and Nye Yong thought Jia Arrow called what a powerful character, it turned out to be Su Chang. Su Chang is also a small gangster in this area, although he is already 30 years old, but he has not made a name for himself, and is even prepared to follow the warped mouth under the brothers. Not to mention in Haicheng City, even under Big Head's men, warped mouth can't be ranked. When there are big things, big projects, or things to kill, Big Head will let a few other capable generals come out. Only things like guarding the house will be handed over to people like Warlock. Su Chang even wanted to follow behind warped mouth, Yuan Jiha was still Su Chang's henchman, and the Ho claimed in Jia Era's mouth was actually him. Big Head and Nye Yong cried and laughed. Su Chang took a look at so many people in the box, and Big Head and Nye Yong were there, and before he could figure out what was going on, he started shivering. Big Head asked Su Chang in no uncertain terms, are you the people this Jia Arrow called? Jia Arrow slightly raised his head to look, and his heart cooled down. In society as the boss of the people, there is a kind of temperament, especially the real boss, often look unassuming, but once encountered something, not angry from the powerful aura cannot hide. Look at Su Chang, the aura is not as good as Yuan Jihao. Jia Era cursed in his heart, Yuan Jihao, I've been screwed by you. Su Chang saw Big Head opening his mouth to ask himself, and hurriedly explained, No, I don't know any Jia Arrow, I came to play, and went to the wrong door. Yuan Jihao saw Jia Arrow lying on the ground and hurriedly ran over to pick him up, brother. Jia Arrow looked at Yuan Jihao and shook his head with his eyes closed. Chang, Yuan Jihao turned back to Su Chang, whose face was white with fear, and said, he is my brother Arrow. Su Chang hurriedly said, why didn't you say earlier, he messed with the head brother? When Ruyu, who was lying on the side, also thought that Jia Arrow had moved some savior, and when she heard this tone, she was desperate. Jia Dalong has been kneeling there, looking like a fool. Tu Jun almost laughed his teeth off when he saw that Jia Arrow had called in these people. When Yuan Jihao saw the completely disfigured Jia Arrow, his chest got hot, his eyes reddened, and he looked up at Big Head and said, Brother Head, I know I can't say anything in front of you. But this is really my life, brother. Please, Big Head brother high hand, as long as let go of my brother, from now on, I Yuan Jihao this life is yours. Chapter 37 Pale Explanation. Those who come out to mix, there are many who dare to play with their lives, so in society, those who merely don't want their lives aren't worth much. With Big Head's reputation in Haichang, he didn't know how many people who came out to mix with him wanted to give their lives to him. For Yuan Jihao's words, Big Head was turning a deaf ear. He asked the brothers around him to make way for a place, and then pointed to an empty space in front of Jia Arrow, and said to Su Chang and the 5 brothers behind him, come here, kneel here. Upon hearing this, Su Chang hurriedly ran over and knelt facing Jia Arrow. The boss is kneeling, 5 brothers can say what else, follow him to kneel in a row. Big Head asked Su Chang, do you want to leave alive? Think about it. Okay, take your brothers, go over there and beat that kid up, I'm satisfied, you can go. Without saying a word, Su Chang got up and kicked Jia Arrow. What the hell, are you crazy? Yuan Jihao defiantly blocked with his body, a pair of eyes staring whiter than a bull's eye, and roared at Su Chang, this is my brother, a lifelong brother. Big Head said coldly to Su Chang, you can go now. Su Chang was like an amnesty, not even caring about the other brothers, directly slipped out. Big Head asked the 5 brothers kneeling there again, don't you want to go? They glanced at Yuan Jihao, lowered their heads and knelt without moving. Compared to Su Chang, Yuan Jihao, needless to say, these 5 brothers were also interesting enough. They knew that they couldn't beat each other and were still kneeling on the ground full of aggression, but they couldn't lay their hands on their buddies' brothers. Big Head turned to look at Yuan Jihao, you kid quite righteous, willing to use your life for your brother's life? Yuan Jihao blurted out, yes. Give me a fight. Big Head made a wink. The men understood, but did not beat Yuan Jiha, but beat Jia Eru. Seeing this, Yuan Jihao's whole body was lying on Jia Eru's body, protecting him with his body, and he received dozens of punches and dozens of kicks in a row. The last mouthful of blood sprayed onto Jia Eru's face. The five brothers kneeling on the ground, each with hot tears, but did not dare to move. When Ruyu once again cried out, "Please don't fight, you guys say, what exactly do we have to do to let us go?" Sha Jie said at this time, "If we let you accompany our brothers present to sleep all over, are you willing?" When Ruyu tore her heart and lungs and cried, I am willing, as long as you guys don't fight." Woo! Big Head waved his hand towards Xiao Jie and walked over to Wen Ruyu and asked, "Your brother-in-law beat up my brother, what do you think about this?" Wen Ruyu cried, "Do whatever you say." "Well, he hit my 6 brothers, a brother 100,000, you take 600,000, this matter is settled." "Yes, yes." Jia Dalong seems to suddenly wake up, immediately said, "Can what? You're crazy, where do we get 600,000? This matter has nothing to do with you." When Ruyu turned to Big Head and said, "You tell me the account number, I will call you now." Xiao Jie heard when Ruyu so dry, think Big Head reported less, immediately added, "Yo, head brother, your brother so worthless?" Big Head understood what she meant, but let Nya Yong report the account number to Wen Ruyu, who immediately transferred 600,000 to Nya Yong. Seeing the money arrive, Nya Yong nodded towards Big Head. Big Head twisted his head and glanced at Jia Dalong, who hurriedly explained, I didn't even know there was so much money in the house, it's my wife's stash of personal money." Big Head sneered contemptuously, waved his hand, and his men flashed the gate open. The 5 brothers kneeling on the ground, rushed up to help Yuan Jihao. Yuan Jihao said, "Do not care about me, go to help my brothers." 2 of them still held him up, the other 3 went to help Jia Eru, who could barely stand up. One of the brothers carried Jia Eru on his back, and only then did the group leave in a sorry state. Once outside, Yuan Jihao couldn't help but bawl, "Eru brother, I'm sorry for you, ah." Woo! When Ruyu was even more unable to see the road under her feet with her tearful eyes. Jia Dalong on the contrary is very calm, he reached out to help when Ruyu asked, "Wife, should we call the police?" When Ruyu wanted to shake off Jia Dalong's hand, heard him ask, froze for a moment, said, "Of course." Saying that, she pulled out her cell phone. "Sister-in-law," Jia Eru said breathlessly at this time, "do not call the police." "Why?" Jia Dalong asked in disbelief. Yuan Jiha wiped his tears, and only then did he realize that when Ruyu and Jia Dalong were Jia Eru's sister-in-law and big brother. "Big brother," Yuan Jiha said, "Eru hurt their people, they hurt us now, even if we call the police, at best it will be a brawl, we cannot do anything to them. If we really arrest them, I am afraid that we will also be arrested. Then they also knocked us 600,000. Jia Eru said, "Don't worry, I will pay you back." Jia Dalong glanced at Jia Eru and thought, "What are you going to pay back?" "The security job where I help you find, when you have money to pay back, I buried half of the earth." When Ruyu said at this time, "Families say what 2 families say? You are now good to get well." Jia Dalong hurriedly said, "Yes, your sister-in-law is right, we brothers still talk about what money matters? Besides, it's not that I can't spare the money just now, I just think that your sister-in-law agreed too quickly and they will sit on the price. Look, didn't that woman open her mouth later?" He felt that he had explained himself very appropriately, but just now everyone was present, and in that situation, when Ruyu's reaction was the normal reaction of a loved one. As for Jia Dalong's explanation, I'm afraid that only he himself believed it. Chapter 38. Brother, a few people with you now. Jia Eru was sent to the hospital for a checkup, although bruises all over the body, the good thing is that it did not hurt the bones, mainly because he has a good body base, carry it. Nonetheless, was arranged to be hospitalized. Seeing the 5 features or deformed Jia Eru, lying on the bed with a drip, when Ruyu tears on the spot. Yuan Jihao himself also suffered a body injury, but wanted to stay to take care of Jia Eru, no matter what Jia Eru said, he just won't go. The other 5 brothers are also staying. There is also Wen Ruyu. Jia Dalong, however, advised Wen Ruyu that she had to attend class tomorrow and definitely couldn't be here tonight. When Ruyu saw that Yuan Jihao and the others were staying, she meant to hope that Jia Dalong could stay. Jia Dalong didn't say anything for half a day, so she said she would stay. Jia Dalong is not unwilling to take care of Jia Eru, mainly because he is afraid that Big Head's people will arrive at the hospital again at night. He didn't think about it, if Big Head's people were going to rush to the hospital, they wouldn't have let them out just now. He was scared silly and didn't know the ways of the social people, so he was in a hurry to leave. Not to mention that he had just peed his pants and he was in a hurry to get home to change them. Jia Ero could see Jia Dalong's mind, but didn't hate him at all. First of all, he caused this today and was too careless. Originally thought that in the afternoon he had already beaten up Nia Yong and the others who were called by 2 June, and it would be fine at night. Otherwise, with his character, he would still go to the KTV at night. If he had gone directly, there would have been no such thing as when Ruyu and Jia Dalong being hijacked, and he would have been able to let go of his hands and have a great time. Secondly, he knew better than anyone that Jia Dalong was a timid and extremely selfish person. Tonight, not to mention himself, even if it was his own parents, he would only be like this. However, Jia Ero's heart was filled with gratitude for Wen Ruyu. He felt that Wen Ruyu's behavior today was just like his own adoptive mother, who would have been like her if she were here. At this moment, what Jia Ero received from Wen Ruyu was by no means the kind of ambiguous emotion between a man and a woman, but rather a strong motherly love. Sister-in-law. Jia Ero moved his finger. Seeing this, Wen Ruyu immediately went over to hold his hand. Sister-in-law, Jia Ero looked at Wen Ruyu like a child. You have suffered today, too tired, go home and rest. I have brother Hao and the others here to take care of it, it's fine. Wen Ruyu's heart broke. She preferred to see the kind of intimidating and even fearful gaze that Jia Ero had before. Wen Ruyu cried while nodding her head, okay, I'll go back, I'll come over early tomorrow morning. Jia Dalong came over at this time, assisted Wen Ruyu. Wen Ruyu did not say anything. The two just walked out of the hospital room. Wen Ruyu pushed Jia Dalong away. After Jia Dalong and Wen Ruyu left, there was a short, embarrassing silence in the hospital room. What everyone wanted to discuss most at this time was Su Chang's matter, but seeing Jia Ero's condition, none of them were willing to mention this topic. These brothers usually had a pretty good relationship with Yuan Jiha, and Yuan had given them many stories about Jia Ero in the provincial prison to talk about. They knew that Jia Ero was not only able to fight, but was also righteous enough, emotional, and good at fighting. When Yuan Jiha was in there, because there were fewer inmates in Haicheng, he was bullied through and through, and if it wasn't for Jia Ero's cover, he didn't know how he would have survived those years. Now Jia Ero has fallen on hard times and found him, even if the other side is too powerful and can't handle it. But what Su Chang did is not only hitting Jia Ero's face, but also making these brothers lose face, and chilling the hearts of the brothers. Jia Ero knows what everyone is thinking, smiled and said, "Thank you brothers, today if you do not rush there, maybe I will be there cancelled." Yuan Jiha said awkwardly, "Brother, you say this can be in my face. It really isn't." Jia Ero explained, "If you didn't go, maybe all 3 of us would have been cancelled and no one would have known. If you go, they can only think of knocking a little more money, and do not dare to go too far. That's why the brothers have saved my life." Jia Ero said this, making the brothers present a little groundless. "Brothers," Yuan Jiha said, "in the beginning, it was me who said big words in front of you, or else I would not have let you lose this face today, just that I really did not lie to you. Our brothers are also quite capable of playing life. The reason why we followed Su Chang in the first place is that he said he knew Uncle Sang. Although our brothers in society, but also have their own bottom line, so there has not been anything, simply cannot figure out his bottom. This time we kind of see through it. Brother, although you are a little younger than us all, but your person and strength we are clear, if you do not mind, our brothers and sisters will be with you in the future." After saying that, Yuan Jiha swept a glance at a few brothers all nodded silently, considered to agree. Jia Ero had just been beaten up, and the one who beat him up was the big head of one of the 4 heavenly kings. In this situation, these brothers actually agreed to follow him, so it can be seen that they are not cowards. Jia Ero smiled, "I do not want to come out this time to mix in society, just want to find an ordinary job, ordinary life. But today a few big brothers friendship, I too tiger collar. In the future, as long as there is something in brotherhood, just say hello." Yuan Jiha laughed awkwardly, "Brother, this is to look down on our brothers ah. Your character I do not know? This matter cannot be just let it go. To tell you the truth, we do not have a good big brother, as long as the big brother has the balls to have the amount, what 3 old 4 young, a few brothers and sisters absolutely no ambiguity." Chapter 39 This is not the warped mouth of the female ticket. Just back Jia Ero all the way to the hospital. Sun Chao said, "Two tiger brother, big head under the most fierce is not Nia Yong? If I were to fight him alone, I wouldn't hesitate to take him on. But their power is too big, and we lack a boss who dares to play with his life. Brother Hao has told us about you countless times. As long as you don't mind, my brothers will never disgrace you. Jia Ero has a stout body, his weight is not light. Just now Sun Shao carried him over in one breath, enough to prove that his strength is indeed not small. Jia Ero smiled and said to Sun Shao, "Shao brother, today's matter I remember, have the opportunity one must return you a life." Sun Shao frowned, brother saying this is out of line. I have never kneeled to anyone in my life, and following Su Chang today is really too stifling. If you are looking for big head in Nieyong, you must call me. I'm not helping you, I just can't hold my breath. A few other brothers also said, who has suffered from this kind of anger today? When the two tiger brothers do it, also count us. Yuan Jiha then asked, you and the number, and the provincial city of a big brother Ninghao relationship is very iron, this time is not intended to ask him to step in? Jia Era shook his head. Yuan Jiha, embarrassed again, immediately explained, Ninghao is not like me, is blown out. In Haichang, not to mention the 4 heavenly kings, even the 3 elders will give him some face. He is very righteous. Haichang society people, as long as to the provincial city, have anything to ask him to smooth things out. If he wanted to step in, Big Head would definitely buy it. Jia Era smiled and shook his head, Brother Hao, you don't need to blame yourself too much, I certainly know Ninghao's power. You also just said that he is a righteous person. But if I tell him about this, what can he do about Big Head? At best, he'll just ask for the money that he knocked off my brother and sister-in-law, and apologize to me. What happened to me today is not just a matter of paying back the money and apologizing. I must ask for 10 times the money. I'll pay back my injuries 10 times over. Big Head and Nieyong, even if I don't cancel their accounts, I'll make them disappear from Haichang. This kind of thing, letting Ninghao step in is just making things difficult for him. If I don't make a move, I'll make it so that Big Head and Nieyong won't know who to talk to. Jia Era looked very calm as he said these words, but every word was like a steel blade that sent shivers down one's spine. Yuan Jiha and a few of his brothers glanced at each other, and the brothers nodded. They confirmed that Yuan Jiha wasn't lying. If they really wanted to gain a foothold in society, although Jia Era was young, he could definitely be their big brother. Seeing that it was getting late, Jia Era told them all to go back. Everyone is chatting in the heat of the moment, no one is willing to go. Yuan Jiha laughed, brother, we left, who will give you shit at night? Jia Era laughed, brother Hao, this is not good, you want to cut off my peach blossom lucka? There are so many nurses in the hospital, there might be 1 or 2 heavenly ladies, if you guys stay here, I won't have a chance. As I was saying, the sound of high heels clicking sounded in the hallway outside. No need to look at the person, that crisp sound can let a person imagine that it is a dignified, extraordinary temperament of the beauty. Everyone unanimously looked towards the door. Sure enough, a large beauty with a slim figure and wearing a white dress appeared at the door. After seeing the beauty's appearance, everyone froze. Wasn't this Warped Mouth's horse? Yuan Jiha and his brothers exchanged glances. The person who came was no other than Chen Lingan. Because she was often with Warped Mouth, and because Warped Mouth liked to blabber to his brothers, many people thought that she was Warped Mouth's girl. Xiao Zui was Nieyong and Big Head's henchman, Jair, who had just been brutally beaten up by them. What was Xiao Zui's girl doing in the hospital at this time? What is the girl doing in the hospital at this time? The one who was more surprised than them was Jia Ero. He didn't expect Chen Lingan to come to the hospital and thought that she had gone to the wrong door. During the day, Xiao Zui was also beaten up by Jia Ero. Did he also live in this hospital? Chen Lingan came to see him? Jia Ero did not expect Chen Lingan really came to see him. The original Chen Lingan woke up after the wine. At home, the more you think the more angry. She did not know what happened today. She was beaten up by Jia Ero, called to the mouth of the war, was also taught to flee. Although the promise of this passed, but the heart of the can, which is so easy to pass? She thought of her boyfriend Ding Gang. Although this period of time the two do not see each other, but encountered. This kind of aggression, or want to find him to talk about. As long as Ding Gang for her out of this mouth, the past all kinds of misbehavior, she will forgive. Never thought that when she went to Ding Gang's villa, Ding just got up. And he got up a piece, actually is Shao Jie. At the drop of a hat, Chen Lingan directly pounced on Shao Jie. But the thin body of Chen Lingan, where is the opponent? In one move, she was pushed to the ground by Shao Jie. Chen Lingan pointed at Ding Gang and cursed, but Ding Gang told her that in 6 months, he will marry Xia Jie. Chen Lingan, without tears, went to the bar to get drunk, and on the way home, she met a couple of gangsters. Although Jia Era saved her, but a body operation, Chen Lingan felt insulted. Even if it is Ding Gang, the two are just hugging and kissing. The two are university classmates. She knows that Ding Gang's family is too rich to be tired of being played by him, may be abandoned at any time. So when dating, Chen Lingan forced to keep the city not to lose. Originally thought that the recent just a little conflict, Ding just finished those scum women, will eventually return to her side, did not think. Ding Gang really if you marry a big girl is fine, but to marry a, in the past in the violet when the princess Xiaojia. This kind of blow for Chen Lingan is fatal. The more she thought about it, the more extreme Chen Lingan suddenly had an impulse. Since her whole body had no more secrets from Jia Ero, let's go crazy again. She put on a dress, put on her makeup, and went straight downstairs to knock on the door, just in time to run into Jia Dalong and Ruyu, who were returning home from the hospital. Jia Dalong was startled at the sight and hurriedly asked her what was the matter. Chen Lingan explains that she is not looking for trouble with Jia Ero, but has come to thank him. She got drunk and was almost bullied by hooligans. It was Jia Ero who sent her home. Jia Dalong told her that Jia Ero had been beaten up and was now lying in the hospital. Chen Lingan heard, immediately rushed to the hospital. Come to the ward, Chen Lingan froze at once. She carefully swept a glance, how a person do not recognize. The problem is just asked at the nurse's station, Jia Ero live in this ward. She retreated back to look at the room number and once again stared at Jia Ero lying on the bed, and asked with a puzzled face, doesn't Jia Ero live here? Because Jia Ero's face was deformed, Chen Lingan could not recognize him at all. Confirming that she was the one who came to find Jia Ero, Yuan Jiha, and a few others were confused. Jia Ero nodded, it's me. HM? Chen Lingan walked to the bedside, looked at the bruised and swollen Jia Ero, and asked incredulously, is it really you? How are you so useless? Who was beaten into this kind of bear? This kind of words, the general relationship of people cannot say, even good friends, even relatives cannot say. People are hurt like this, it's too late to comfort, who will still talk about it? Yuan Jiha and Sun Chao suddenly felt that Chen Lingan and Jia Ero had an unusual relationship. Jia Ero smiled bitterly and didn't say anything. Chen Lingan swept a glance at Yuan Jiha and the others, you are all Ero's friends, right? Now it is very late, to fight or kill tomorrow, I'll go home and rest well, tonight I take care of him. Chapter 41 Size does not fit all. Warped Mouth's horse, to take care of Jia Ero at night, what does this mean? Yuan Jiha and the others were puzzled, but it was inconvenient to ask more, so they could only cast their eyes toward Jia Ero. Jia Ero nodded at them, meaning to let them leave. With a beautiful woman accompanying them, anyone with a little bit of brains wouldn't be a light bulb. The brothers immediately got up and bid farewell to Jia Ero. Yuan Jiha also told Chen Lingan his cell phone number, so that he could be there at any time whenever there was something at night, no matter when he called. Chen Lingan nodded. When going out, Sun Chao asked Yuan Jiha, didn't you say that Ero is not a local? And just came out of the number, how did he know Warped Mouth's Ma Zi? It looks like the relationship is also very unusual. Who knows? Go back and ask again. Yuan Jiha turned to ask, by the way, a few brothers, this two tiger brother is quite a quantity of people, said the words will definitely do. As long as he is discharged from the hospital, he will definitely set off a storm of bloodshed. Everyone can think well, dare to follow him? Brothers have taken the position, you will remove the dare, tonight we all suffocated, this mouth is not out, or a man? Yuan Jiha said, in that case, from now on, we all call him Tiger. Although he is young, but not much younger than us. Since we recognize him as the boss, let's lift him up first. Sun Chao said, is that even necessary? Even if we have the same mind that he just had, we can't say his words. People have been beaten to that state, I don't know if you guys noticed his eyes? Sun Chao has not served anyone, this tiger, I recognize. A few other brothers immediately agreed, this is a must, no matter what the future outcome, to be able to recognize such a boss, dare to fight with big head, think about it all with vigor. After Yuan Jiha and the others left, Chen Lingan stood by the bedside quietly looking at Jia Ero for a while before suddenly snorting a laugh and kept shaking her head. Jia Ero, you also have today, aren't you bullish? After saying that, she sat on her bed next to Jia Ero, and actually stretched out her small palm and gently slapped Jia Ero's 2 slaps. She fanned really quite light. Jia Ero, however, really hurt. Hiss. Jia Ero bared his teeth and looked at her, smelling the scent that emanated from her body, thinking that a few hours ago, not only did he look at her all over, but he also touched her, so he lost his temper. Besides, he could see that Chen Lingan had no malicious intent. Motherfucker. Chen Lingan gritted her teeth and stared at Jiaeru. If I had known that you would be taught a lesson, sis wouldn't have gone to that heartless one and wouldn't have been humiliated by that stinky bitch. Sister cannot be angry before running to drink, almost all the innocence is so spoiled. This is not to say, you kid also fell into the well, sis body should see should not see, you have seen, should touch should not touch, you have touched. You don't think it's you who saved sis is being victimized by you, this is called the wheel of heaven, karma, now fall into the hands of sis, right? Humph. After saying that, Chen Lingan suddenly looked around, like she was looking for something. As a result, she didn't find anything, and suddenly, with a turn of her eyes, she actually took off her high heels, pinched the upper of her shoe, and prepared to slap Jiaeru's face with the sole of her shoe. Jiaeru was stunned, said in a deep voice, "Don't go too far." Being slapped in the face with the sole of a woman's shoe is a great shame for any man. Chen Lingan was stunned, then laughed, "You a little kid, but also fucking so many rules, what's wrong with the soles of women's shoes? Sister, this sole, other men are afraid to beg, you are still here with sister pretense?" After saying that, she raised her shoe and wanted to slap it. Jiaeru glared at her and involuntarily clenched his fists. Chen Lingan's heart flinched. She had learned too much about Jiaeru's power, and even if she was injured like this, she didn't dare to be too unbridled. Not letting the fan is fine, call a sister, otherwise, sister heart this breath cannot come out. Jiaeru couldn't help but laugh and cry, this is a fucking revenge or a flirtation. Especially Chen Lingan's body has been tilted forward, although the chest is very flat, but there is also a slight outline. The snow-white neck and the upper edge of her breasts had been presented in front of Jiaeru. The scent after the bath kept coming from her chest, and Jiaeru's body was all shifted. Chen Lingan moved her body forward again and threatened again, scream or not? Jiaeru shook his head and hopelessly called out, "Sister." Louder. "Sis. This is more or less the same." Chen Lingan threw her shoes to the ground, "Don't think I am taking advantage of you, I should be older than you. After all, I am also a virtuous woman, I pooh," said Rowan, "I am a pure love little girl, was you look and touch, if there is no explanation, I will not have the face to marry in the future. If you call me sis, I'll treat you as a younger brother who doesn't know any better, at least I'll have an explanation for myself, don't you think so? I've called you, what's right or wrong?" Jiaeru just felt that her behavior was too naive and childish, only that in this naivete and childishness, there were still a few bits of cuteness. "By the way, little kid, what year were you born?" Once Jiaeru said that the two were in the same year, he was actually a month older than Chen Lingan. Chen Lingan smiled, "Sorry, took advantage of you for a month." "I'm so sorry, I'm wrong again, you touched me for half a day, a month's worth of cheapness is not good enough." Jiaeru was amused by her, plus hanging half a day's drip, suddenly wanted to urinate. He moved his body, but bared his teeth in pain. "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Chen Lingan asked as she stood up, "You still want to do it?" Jiaeru had wanted to go to the bathroom himself, but it seemed impossible, so he had to say, "I want to ring the bell to call the nurse." Chen Lingan looked at the drip there are still a lot, puzzled and asked, "What for?" "I want to solve the small hand."